What is going down, everybody? Welcome back to another Am I Still on the Air? And tonight, man, we about to do something fresh, something friggity fresh that we've never done before. It is going to be a little crazy, but we're going to make it happen for y'all because you've noticed in the last couple of weeks, there's been a couple movies that have come out, and a lot of people have been like, where them spoiler reviews at, son? Well, once again, life gets in the way, and we try to make it work, and this is when we're going to make it work. And to make it a special time for all y'all, we're going to squeeze it. We're going to squeeze it all into one episode, guys. This is a mega spoiler review. This is a mega spoiler review right here because we're going to talk not one, not two, but three movies, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk Across the Spider-Verse. We're going to talk Transformers Rise of the Beast, and we're going to talk The Flash. So we are catching up right now, and we're going to break down these three films in kind of more of a rapid fashion because obviously if you listen to the spoiler reviews before, we typically go almost about 2 hours on each movie. So this isn't going to be a 6-hour podcast, I promise you. So we're going to be a little bit more strategic tonight. We're going to watch the clock, and we're going to try to move things along at a good pace here. But at the same time, having a really good conversation, kind of talking about these three films that are really big, man. They're all #1 movies that have come out over the last 3 weeks, and different levels of what people have liked and not liked, and just kind of curious to get everybody's views and touch points here tonight. So again, this is a spoiler review. My name is DONMEGA. This over here is the Peeps. Down here is the Frigginz. What's up, guys?
Hey. Wow, there's a lot to get through, and we have a lot to get through. So
much to get through.
And it's just the beginning.
It's going to be so much fun, though. Lots to talk about.
I am excited. And all positive, right, Frigginz? We're not
I don't have anything. Nothing. I never have anything negative to talk about. I don't know what you're saying.
So positive. Rainbows and flowers only for
That's right. That's right. All fives all the time.
Flash did have his helmet.
All
so
done.
For him to complain.
Never overthinks anything.
Never.
No overthinking. No overthinking. The score he gives walking out that theater sticks for life. Never changes.
Yeah, it never changes.
Never, ever. So yeah, guys, if you are watching live on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us here live. If you're listening to the audio podcast after the fact, thank you for listening. But if you're listening to the audio version, yes, this was done on video. So you can go to our YouTube channel and you can click the link. You can watch the video version or you can listen to the audio version. Either way, we try to make it work for you guys. So again, welcome to the show. Typically, like I said, we break down one particular movie and we spend time going over what we liked, what we didn't like, our overall thoughts, and everything kind of in between. Tonight, we're going to mix it up a little bit and we're going to go movie by movie and we're going to dedicate, half hour, 40 minutes or so kind of to each one, depending on how conversation goes. And we'll move along from movie to movie. So we are going to start back at Spider-Verse because, of course, we're going to go kind of in sequential order. And we're going to start things off here with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So you guys ready to talk this one? I know one of y'all are.
I think that's Peeps. You look pretty excited there, buddy.
Dude, this was my #1 anticipated movie of 2023. So yes, I am very excited about this one.
Just a tad. Just
a little bit
on my list, but I'm also excited to talk about this one.
On my list. Anyways,
I think it was an honorable mention.
Yeah, probably.
I feel like every movie this year was an honorable mention. I don't remember what actually made the top 10.
I know.
Like all the good stuff was like barely honorable mentions.
But yes, this movie was ridiculous, I think, in a good way.
Yes.
In the best way, yes.
In a very good way. Yeah. So, there's been a lot of love for this movie. Obviously, this is the sequel to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which came out, 2018? It's been a hot minute since that movie came out, man, and kind of blew everybody's mind, right? Like, we were in the midst of all these live-action Spider-Man movies, and then they were like, we're going to do this animated movie based on Miles. And honestly, most people on the internet were like, fuck that. Why the fuck do we need a cartoon? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And then we started to hear the names like Lord and Miller being involved, guys that really understood the franchise and knew what they were doing. They had a good comedic sense of timing. And then we started to see kind of some of the artwork and it was like, okay, that's different kind of approach. movie came out, blew everybody's mind, right? And was a pretty modest little hit there that got people really excited about this version of Spider-Man that they were not familiar with before. So we knew they were going to make a sequel. Originally, it was Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 and Across the Spider-Verse Part 2 that were going to be back to back. This movie here was supposed to come out last year and then got delayed a whole year, which we were all bummed about when it was supposed to hit, I think, October of last year. And then they decided and changed it and said, nope, no longer Part 1, Part 2. We're going to make it Across the Spider-Verse and then Beyond the Spider-Verse for Part 3. So it was like, okay, they're mixing it up a little bit. Let's see what we get. And then this movie dropped a couple weeks ago. Massive debut. Just to put some perspective on it, the first movie debuted with like 35 million opening weekend. Wow. Very, very low opening, just kind of typical animated opening, 35 mil. This movie was coming out. They were like, you know what? We think it's going to hit 70. And it was like, okay, yeah, 70 to 80 range. It would be really good. And it made 120 million opening weekend, which was phenomenal. I mean, a movie going from a $35 million opening to 120, which was insane. I haven't seen predictions blown out the water by that much. Typically, predictions are within 5 to 10 mil if they're lucky. And this was a lot. This is a big difference.
Especially but again, since it's like an animated film with like $100 million budget.
Right, exactly.
Yep. And the funny thing is the two biggest debuts this year are animated films. You got the Super Mario Brothers movie, which is the biggest debut of the year, followed by Across the Spider-Verse. So kind of interesting that we're, halfway through the year and the two biggest debuts are animated films this year, which is kind of, mind-blowing a little bit. So this one comes out, kills it. Was getting like a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, like a 98%, fan rating, an A, like I think an A+ or a cinema score. I mean, I haven't seen anybody be like, this movie sucks or this is a piece of shit. Like as much as, especially film Twitter is at attacking movies.
Yeah.
I haven't seen nobody attack this movie. This is one of those rare ones that nobody seems to be touching for the most part here. And wow, and really well deserved, because I will say, I like the first movie a lot. I was looking forward to this one mainly more for my daughter. And then I walked out being like, damn, that was a really good movie. Just overall, right? Like everything it brought. Again, this series knows how to hit the heartstrings. It knows how to connect the family stuff. I love the animation style in this one because, again, when the trailer dropped, I was not impressed. I wasn't impressed with the trailer in the first movie. And then when you see it in context, you're like, okay, that's pretty cool. And I felt the same way here. I thought the trailer was a little wonky looking from the animation standpoint. But then when you see the movie as a whole, you're like, that's pretty interesting, right? Especially the different styles on the different worlds, especially like Gwen Stacy's world, how it was kind of like paint, melting away, and then the different emotions were changing the colors, and that kind of stuff was super, super cool to me. And again, Miles taking on this story as he's like, not a part of this spider crew that everybody is a part of, and because he's not even supposed to be there, right? Like the way they linked the story in this one was phenomenal. And just bringing in all these characters, it could have been really, really messy, and I thought they nailed it. So general thoughts, guys, like just, and Peeps, I'll start with you because you were looking forward to this more than anybody, being your number one most anticipated. Did it live up to that? Is it your number one movie of the year? How you feeling on Across the Spider-Verse?
Man, geez. Well, what I can say is that yes, this movie definitely exceeded my expectations, and my expectations were phenomenally high. There were some characters in this movie that were going to be in this movie that I wasn't too excited about seeing, specifically Spider-Punk, aka Hobie Brown, and I told you. Frigginz was like, yo, this dude. I'm like, it's a Spider-Man with a mohawk. Like, now I'm out.
Right. Yeah.
But like, I am Team Spider-Punk for freaking show. Like, I have been looking up like some comic books. I want to start collecting some figures. Like that character was so amazing and just so perfect for this movie. Like the way he was antagonizing Miles to, like, rebel, because he is such a rebellious spirit himself. I loved it. I love the Spider team, especially at the very end when you see the 3 from the first movie popping up, and like I got so excited. I was honestly like upset. I'm like, man, I kind of wanted to see Noir or even Ham, like just kind of walking by, like waving at him, or we saw Penny for a little bit, and she's a bit older, and her mech is like this like giant like Gundam looking thing, and like whoa, but like we got that, and then the movie's telling us like, hey, if you missed this and you wanted it, you're gonna get it. And it's like there's such. This movie, man, I as I told you guys, I can probably go on and on for 2 hours myself about loving like Easter eggs, bits and pieces that they threw into the movie that like you will only catch on a rewatch. And there's some little scenes even from the first movie that Frigginz and I always reference. Like we're always talking about Bagel, getting hit with Bagel, and they threw that in as like a major plot point into this freaking movie. What? Bits and pieces like the spider glitching from the very first movie. It's like the way that the first movie is and this movie, they mesh so well together. It doesn't feel like an afterthought or something forced. Like this is a sequel that the first movie was amazing by itself. It could have been done, and then we would have all, I think, been very happy with it.
Yeah.
But the way that this movie connects with the first one, it's like, oh yeah, of course, definitely we need this second movie. And I see a lot of people, you said that you haven't been seeing a lot of negative feedback on them. I think there's a lot of the younger generation that has never seen Empire Strikes Back. And I'm not even joking, but they are literally upset and booing and angry at the movie theater by the way that the movie ended. And, they felt, cheated, and they wanted their money back. And I'm not even going to say I get it or I understand, because I personally haven't watched the first movie. This got me excited for what's to come, because I don't want a 30-minute final act. I want another like 2 hour movie of everything else that they have for us. Gosh, like I don't know what I can't remember his name, but Spider-Man India, a character I didn't even know was in this game, but just loved the way that he looks, and such a great improvement from the way he looks in the comics. The comics, he's like Spider-Man top with Aladdin bottom. Like that's really all. Yeah, man, just music, characters, animation, even characters like Hobie bringing his animation into the real world, and how he's always changing. Humor, like I'm just cracking up super hard at this movie. Like it just like you were saying before, like the emotions, the family element, the elements of being a parent and your child going from that like adolescent to becoming like a teenager, and that change that they go through, and how do I handle it? How do they handle it? Like, just don't let go of that little boy inside of you. And to see, man, I just know that it's going to hit like in the next movie when he comes back with a cake, and whether something's happened to his dad or something hasn't, like it's just, they're going to do such a great, like these two, Lord and Miller, man, like I haven't seen a movie yet where they didn't fulfill their goal. Like why did you too, Don, like why do we like Lego movies so much? That movie should not have been that good. It had no business being that freaking good.
Nope. We thought it was the dumbest shit ever when they announced it.
Yeah. Right. And then like that's back when I was working with you, and you're over there singing "Everything Is Awesome" like at yeah, man, like everything they've done, it kind of makes me sad that they didn't actually direct the Ant-Man movie. As great as that movie was, like it just kind of makes me think like how much better it could have been, but whatever. But yeah, man, so many things I can say about this movie. I can go on and on and on. Frigginz, you're going to say something that's going to remind me. I'm going to want to interrupt you, but I'm going to hold tight. This movie, I'd say probably the like best animated film of all time. I absolutely loved it. So I'll just hand off that baton to you, Frigginz.
Oh, thanks. I'll take that over here and
take it.
So look, guys, I hate to be the downer, but after watching this movie, I'm just kidding. Peeps was there with me. He knows. Absolutely loved it as well. Same as you guys. And I think, in general, like you guys each kind of talked about a lot of the same aspects, the same emotions, feelings that I had coming out of it. I thought it was a whirlwind of, a visual, but mixed with emotional, but mixed with an action packed, like all these different aspects combined into this wild tornado of art. And really, when I think about this movie, that's kind of what I really emphasize and focus on the most. I think of it like, could you imagine traveling back in time and watching Da Vinci as, he's creating these works, or, seeing Leonardo paint, or any of the other Ninja Turtles doing a painting. But in all seriousness, if you could sit back and watch that art unfold and how impactful that would be, I kind of feel like we had that moment with this and seeing art unfold. And that was really what it kept pulling me into, because I grew up wanting to be an artist. I used to draw when I was younger every day, and I have books I found where I drew my own comic books and things, and they're totally crappy, by the way, but so I have this extra appreciation for art. And what was wonderful is these directors have taken the time to go back and look at books and try and mimic or match a lot of the artistic styles. You could see it in the comedy aspects of Ben Reilly, right? With the sketchy lines and the muscles, which was completely prevalent in that era of comics that it came into. And then going even more so into Gwen Stacy.
I loved how emo he was.
Yeah.
The Ben Reilly one.
So depressed.
Oh, God.
Sad. Backstory is so
Shout out
hard.
Andy Samberg, man. Andy Samberg. Yeah. I love Andy Samberg so much. He was perfect for it.
And that's what I'm saying is they paid so much attention to these artistic aspects of not only the look of a character, but even the era of the character. And Ben Reilly's a perfect 90s example. And then Gwen, I mean, as soon as we go into her world, I was like, that is straight out of the comics. I literally have a comic with the cover that looks exactly like what we were seeing in there, and how the colors would change in the background depending on the emotions. Things would get sad, you'd see the color change in the background, or if it got intense, it would change to a different color. And that was my biggest takeaway from this whole process, is the way that you can utilize art to give us these emotional responses and
that's so beautiful, because these are coming from comics, and you Frigginz know that from artist to artist, each comic is different. It's got a different feel, it's got a different background and just art altogether. And you mentioned Da Vinci, and I'm sure you did that on purpose, because there's a bit of Da Vinci art in this as well. And to see them add that element of just multiple artists kind of coming together all on the same character, it's super meta. Even when they're talking about canon events, how meta can you be?
The term canon, is really cool that they use that term as the defining factors of the canon of each story. And that's a term we use in comic books all the time. And I found that to be enjoyable. So they're paying attention to these crazy minute details that it was just wonderful. It adds to the whole experience and really gives a greater appreciation for what you're watching. Just to kind of talk about what you guys mentioned earlier, I literally have only heard one person say anything bad about this movie, but that person says bad stuff about everything. So yeah. I took that one with a grain of salt, but everyone seems to at least appreciate. I know people that aren't moviegoers, that don't really go to the movies, that went to the movie to see this one. So there's a lot of respect being shown there. People are really taking in these general terms.
So you make 120 mil.
That's right.
That was that word of mouth that weekend. Just everybody talking about it and saying, go see it. Took it there.
And me going back multiple times.
Yeah. So Don, I'm curious, with someone who, isn't as familiar with the comic books as maybe myself or Peeps, and because there's a lot of like small cameos here and there where you could see something in the background that was. And I know you're relatively familiar. I'm sure you recognize a ton of stuff that was in there. But would you say that like those kinds of things like added to the experience for you, and or was it just another cool thing that you're seeing?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm James Lovino, and I'm here to tell you about Alternate Sides, a movie podcast with a twist. I've worked in the film business for 2 decades, but I haven't actually seen that many movies, and this has been driving my frequent collaborator, Sam, a self-confessed film snob, crazy. So every week, while he's stuck in his car trying to avoid getting a parking ticket, thanks to New York City's alternate side parking regulations, we discuss a classic film I've finally just gotten around to seeing. Alternate Sides, a new podcast about movies, parking, and a 25-year friendship, wherever you get your podcasts.
I could add it to the experience. I mean, like even from the trailer when they're in that kind of hub, and they're seeing all the different people. I mean, I get a kick out of this stuff. I mean, I love Easter eggs. I love when stuff like that happens in the live action movies. So that's always cool, right? I think too, what was really cool is I'm very big on like the Spider-Man game that came out a couple years ago.
Yes.
And then the Miles game that came out, and you have the PS4 Spider-Man that's in there when they're talking about gaming, and he pops up and he's like, what's up? What are you guys talking about? And just all the different, because when you're playing that game, like there's 50 different suits you can pick from. And so you notice a lot of the suits and you're like, oh, there's that one suit and there's that. And, and I was a big fan of Spider-Man 2099. So seeing him get to be, like I was super stoked in the first movie when that was the post-credit scene. And it was like, they're going to bring 2099 in, so like getting to have that with Oscar Isaac coming back was super, super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, so many little Easter eggs. I mean, like this is going to be a movie that when it hits digital is going to be studied very hard, frame by frame, because there's so much that we did not see or went by in the background too fast, and then of course there's a lot of other stuff too. Like I never would have expected a horse with a Spider-Man mask on, like stuff like that I'm just like, what the hell, but it's still funny, right? Because in every universe there's a Spider-Man. So yeah, I dig stuff like that. I want to ask you guys like what you thought of the overall story, like like that you have this premise, and when you're watching the trailer and you see kind of like how they're all chasing him, and you're kind of like, like what is going on, right? Like, and then in the story early on, you see that, that he's not involved in it, right? It's all these other Spider-Mans and this and that. And then come to find out that the gist of the story is that, there's a society that's basically trying to keep everything according to the multiverse timeline, right? We have so much multiverse stuff lately in the last couple of years, but almost showed like the Loki branch, and then all of a sudden things are branching off, and and if you don't have your Uncle Ben moment, then things aren't right, and how Miles is an anomaly, right? Because that spider came from another universe and it never should have bit him in the first place. So he's not a real Spider-Man, right? He's not a Peter Parker. He's not part of that. And I thought that was so smart and so unique that they went that route with it. It was something I wasn't expecting. I kind of felt like, wow, like that took some really good planning out to really understand, and that leads to that scene, where he's like, I'm gonna do my own thing, right? And he kind of like wants to branch out, and he's like, I don't have to let my dad die, right? Like I can save him, and I could be a Spider-Man, and I could do everything, right? And I thought that was just super cool. I really, really dug the story, which for me as a guy who doesn't like animated stuff very much, it's because a lot of times like the animated stories are so generic, they're so plain, they're so kiddie-ish, and that was really deep. And I like how they showed the branches and how everybody dealt with that pain, right? And we see the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man holding Gwen Stacy's dad in his arms as he died, and you see Uncle Ben die with the Tobey Maguire, and you see these different moments panning out about how everybody went through that except Miles, and he never should have been bit. And I love that. So I just wanted to get your guys like thoughts, like what'd you think of that core of the story?
I loved it very much. And I and it's very interesting too, because like that whole bit of them not accepting Miles because he's not supposed to be there in the first place, that's just an allegory for Miles's creation in the first place. Like when he was first released as the Ultimate Spider-Man, many people did not accept him. Many people were like, what? Not my Spider-Man. Black Spider-Man? Nope, not interested. I'm out. Like nobody wanted anything to do with him. And I mean, through just word of mouth and just good writing, like he ended up becoming what he is today. And to the point where I've even seen like videos of Ant-Man 3 and Scott going like this to a little kid on the bus stop with the afro.
Yeah,
like,
and they said that's Miles. Is that Miles? Yeah.
It's like I'm sure freaking like Marvel's gonna do that, and like they're gonna cast a Miles, and then like 5 years after that, be like, just so you know, that actually was Miles.
That was him. Yeah.
Remember they did that with the little kid in Iron Man 2, and they were like, it's Peter Parker. He was at the Stark Expo, right?
And then even with the Easter eggs with seeing Donald Glover in there, like most people that know the stories of Miles Morales and Donald Glover, like that's a big moment. And you could even just say like, oh look, it's a cool nod to Homecoming, but it's so much more than that. But yeah, man, like it is such a mountain to climb, or Miles has such a huge mountain to climb. He has this like larger than life villain that I would say would be like more complicated than Spider-Man himself to deal with, like this multi-dimensional being that Doctor Strange would literally need to come and help him with, that Miles is just going to help by himself. I mean, no, he's got his little spider team, and then he's dealing with Miguel, and then he's also dealing with this other Prowler. He has so much on his shoulder, but like that is Spider-Man's thing. Like in that moment in Homecoming when he's literally holding that parking garage on his shoulders, and he wants to give up, but he doesn't give up, and he just pushes through it. Like that is Spider-Man. Like despite all odds, like, oh my gosh, it's great. Sorry, Fred.
No, to build on top of that, I think that you talked about allegories and metaphors and all this, and I think every single person could fit in those shoes. At some point, you felt like there was just too much on your plate. There's too many things coming at you, and there's that's exactly what Spider-Man is supposed to be. Is like you keep pushing through, you keep fighting through. You can make those changes, those impacts. Don't give up. You could be a good person and still come out. And I think that's the beauty of Spider-Man in general, but specifically here in these stories, they find a way to really hit that home and make you feel it, make you see it in a different way. And I just, I gotta love it for that. I think they've done a really amazing thing with this, these two movies that they've put together already, which, on the surface is just another cartoon, but there's so much more in that story that's below the surface.
Very much so. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely much more than a cartoon. I mean, I like you pointing that out, because it can, fall into that route. And this is where the conversation comes into play, right? Because the first movie won Best Animated Film at the Oscars. And now there's a lot of talk like, obviously it could win Best Animated Film again too, but should it be nominated for Best Picture?
Yes.
Can it be in the main category? Yeah, it could. Will they do it? We'll have to wait and see. But I like that that's where the conversation's headed now. It's like, can it be more than just Best Animated Film, right? Just up against, other Pixar or Disney films,
I look at like Avatar 2, which is 90% animation. There's just this tiny amount of actual real life people. Well, guess what? Across the Spider-Verse had a couple real life people in it.
Don't you play that shit now. So they acted out every scene in that movie.
They had a couple people in the real life people in it, so I think it should count.
All of them are real life. Shit went on cartoon.
I'm curious. Just, I mean, obviously, we love this. We love Spider-Man. We love superheroes, and everything that comes together here in this film, adding in the art, the direction, the story, and all that. But was there anything that you didn't necessarily like? Are there any things that you would change differently, or something that was too much, too little? I want to throw it out. I'm a little curious of that because I know how much we all love this. But is there anything we would want different?
I just didn't like the cliffhanger ending. I'll be honest. Like, I felt like on one hand, like I know we kind of talked about this briefly in our chat, but like, you kind of expected it because it was originally a part 1 and part 2, and it's like, okay, like obviously it's leading in. But when they changed the titles, I felt like we get a more like this movie and then this movie, right? Whereas like it just kind of ends and is like to be continued. And I'll never ever forget my daughter being like, "Oh, come on, man," when that shit came on the screen, which I just thought was hilarious.
That's really
She was
funny.
so mad, because she loved the movie and she was just like, "I can't believe they did that to us." And just because we had literally just done that a couple weeks ago with Fast X, right? Like
Right.
we get to the end and then it's like, it's over, right? So the good thing is that we're getting this third one within the next year. This movie, the Beyond the Spider-Verse, is supposed to come out in March. So if things don't delay and everything stays on track, we'll be getting this movie in a nice time frame to pick up and finish the story, which I don't mind. It reminds me of when I saw, Matrix Reloaded,
I
right?
was thinking
Remember
the
that
same
ended
thing.
on
I
a,
was thinking the same
it was
thing.
like always takes me back to that. And then we got to get ready for Revelation, and so,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a bummer because I expected more of a wrapped up storyline for the first one. But I mean, that's nitpicking, I mean, it's not like it made the movie any worse by doing that, but it was just, if I had to pick something that kind of bugged me, it was just that it was a to be continued kind of ending. Yeah, that's the main one that stands out for me, but nothing else really. I think it nailed everything else.
I'm trying, man. I'm really trying. I'm nitpick Nancy, and
Yeah.
I guess I would have liked to have seen maybe Miles handle a villain from his universe to just kind of show that, like he's got that under control, and maybe even understand a little bit more, like, why is it that no other superheroes exist in any of these Spider-Man like worlds? It seems like
Yeah.
it seems like if you're dealing with a multiversal entity such as like this spot, like,
Except for
you would wanna-
10-9-9-9-9.
Yeah.
There was a Doctor Strange mention.
There was a Doctor Strange, yeah.
Who is
but,
Doctor
like,
Strange?
That's
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
Well, there's other
Blue Panther.
2099 characters as well. They could have referenced some of those, but obviously we know that has to do with contracts and rights and all that crap. But
Sure.
so for me, I think the reason I wanted to bring that up is because I think it's hard to find a film where we really don't have anything that one of us, especially in this group, can pinpoint it.
That's true.
Even for me, like the only thing that I caught myself in the middle of or in the kind of early in the movie was when he was first fighting the Spot character. I felt like that was a joke that went a little too long, and but then like how everything comes back and the explanation, and then how he becomes a bigger deal, like then I'm like, okay, I get why that was in there. So even that, what I thought might be a nitpick, kind of goes away. And the cliffhanger thing, like obviously the reason that bothers us is because it's so good, we wanted to see it finish out. And I think that says a good thing about your movie. If your biggest complaint from fans is they're pissed off that you cut it short, that means they wanted to keep watching. This movie could have been a 6-hour movie and people probably would have been fine with it, yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, it's pretty rare that we find something that there's very few things, if any, to nitpick about.
Made me think, one thing I will kind of nitpick on as well, that I'm thinking about it when I'm remembering coming out of it, I think it did run too long. You were just talking about watching it for 6 hours. This movie's almost 2.5 hours long.
Right.
I think from the kid aspect, it's long. I saw a lot of families having to get up and take their kids out, and it just a normal kid movie is kept around 90 minutes, 2 hours tops, right? And it's like we just kind of had Little Mermaid, the live action one was almost 2.5 hours long. That was a long stretch. I felt it in that movie, and then here too. Not that I felt it as much, but I felt like it just kind of kept going and going and going. And I feel like if you're gonna have a 2-part movie that ends on this cliffhanger, they probably could have trimmed out a little bit.
Sure.
Just to kind of, to get to that kind of crucial point and then go. So I think it just ran too much on the long side. I think it could have went over 2 hours a little bit, but I think it was like 220, 225. And like, that's long for an animated film, just at least from a kid perspective. Like I said, it didn't bother me, too much, but my daughter was like, I gotta go to the bathroom, and like they started like towards the end there was like, hold on, I think it's almost over, like
you wait.
and it's like we typically don't gotta worry about that shit, but like it just, I felt like they pushed it just a tad too long. But again, from a nitpick kind of standpoint, so
now I'm also
change the
curious,
storyline.
favorite new Spider-Man, and is there one you wanted to? I mean, like for me, obviously Spider-Punk favorite. The one I was looking forward to the most was Ben Reilly, because I really liked him growing up as a kid. As far as like one I was looking forward to, I wanted to see the black costume Spider-Man. I think that would have been cool. I'm sure they're probably, yeah, but not Venom, but when Spider-Man is wearing the black costume, the symbiote costume. So that would have been cool. I'd like to see. And that's the thing, is maybe he's in there, and I just
might have been there
because there's like 12,000 people thrown in the background there. But again, my favorite obviously is Spider-Punk. But I knew that kind of coming in. I like the design of that character before we saw it. I was telling everybody to be ready. The gunslinger cowboy one was pretty funny too. But so that's me. What about you guys?
Why does your horse wear a mask?
Exactly. He hide his identity. But yeah, no, I think, like I said, going into it, I think 2099 was what I was most excited about. And I don't feel like I got enough of him in this movie. Like they definitely played it up that he was going to be the big bad or whoever, like the big one, especially coming off that post-credit scene in the first movie. And I don't feel like there was enough of him in this one. I bet you he'll have a lot more in the second one. The one I was probably the most pleasantly surprised by was Spider-Punk. I think, like, again, like how Peeps said, like, even playing in the video game, that's one of the skins you can do. And I'm like, this is so fucking stupid. Like, why do I want to put him in the skin and swing around the city with a mohawk and just fucking a guitar and shit? Like, it was dumb. But the way they played it up, dude, won me over. Like, shout out Daniel Kaluuya on this one, voicing this one and really killing it and just being super, super funny. So, that definitely, he was the highlight for me. I mean, all those little one-liners and his quips and, about the economy and about this and that, and and just the regime and just, and him giving Miles the little thing off his wrist because he's like, I don't give a shit. Like, like just fucking like, I'm going to fight the system, like I like that he was just that style. It was cool as hell.
Yeah, even that moment where he's stealing things and he's like essentially like making another little multiversal bracelet. Like you think he's just like, he's just like a klepto, but like that whole thing plays into later on when he ends up giving that to Gwen later on. Like, and then when she uses that multiverse thing, it kind of has that same background that of Hobie's universe or whatnot. Man, I will say though, nitpick character I would have loved to see is Superior Spider-Man. I would have.
That would have been dope. That's a good one.
Apparently, that comic's even coming back. So I feel like it would have been a good way to throw that in there. So I don't know.
Cool.
But yeah,
all right. Let's wrap this one up so we can move on to the next film. Let's go scores around the table here. So Peeps, I know 5, Frigginz 5, 5. So we're gonna go 5, 5, 5 spider webs across the Spider-Verse.
Right.
So very great movie. If you haven't seen it, obviously check it, or while you listening to a spoiler review if you haven't seen it. But definitely check it out. If you haven't, you were just wondering, needed that little push to go see it, definitely check it out. And once again, Beyond the Spider-Verse, the third movie, comes out in March of 2024. So make sure you check that out. And they're saying at this point it's going to wrap up the Miles trilogy, and that'll kind of be the end of his arc. So we'll see if that leads to anything else kind of after the fact. There are a lot of rumblings that they are looking to do the movie live action, or they're looking to do a live action Miles. That could be really interesting, especially if, why not? Why can't he be the Spider-Man of the Sonyverse that they keep bringing all these villains into that have no Spider-Man? It could be Miles, right? Leave Peter Parker over in the MCU and let's do this over here, And I know the guy that does Miles' voice, he really wants to play him in live action as well too. He's kind of like, every review I watched with him, he was like, I will put my whole being into this role. Like, give it to me.
Yep.
Yeah, dude. He's like, I'll work out, I'll put in the work. Like, I was born to do this. So I think it'd be really cool to give the guy a chance, especially with what he's brought to the animated version, to see him in live action. I think it'd be really, really cool. So looking forward to that. So that, my friends, is the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse spoiler review. We're going to now transform into the Transformers Rise of the Beast, everybody. So this here is the 7th film in the Transformers universe. Of course, we had 5 movies that came from Michael Bay, and then we had the 6th movie that came out a couple years ago, which was Bumblebee, little Bumblebee spin-off kind of movie with Haley Steinfeld, took place in the 80s. And then now we fast forward to the 90s. We're in 1994, and we pick things back up as kind of a direct sequel to Bumblebee, but before all the Bay films. And now we have Rise of the Beast. We have basically the introduction here to the what it was, the Primals, the Maximals, the Terracons. You know, we got Unicron, we got all this stuff going on. The Maximals, you know, come into Earth, and then of course we meet our human character, and he is awesome. Anthony Ramos, that a lot of people know from Hamilton, and he did In the Heights. The guy's definitely blowing up. He is the lead here. He takes over the Shia LaBeouf role, and basically meets his Autobot friend, which is Mirage, voiced by Pete Davidson, who I thought stole the show. I loved Mirage. He was so awesome. You know, definitely picking up that Bumblebee role in this one here, right? We kind of transitioned from the girl in her car to the boy in his car, you know, who's a Porsche this go around. And of course we get kind of the light story, which is, you know, Noah's brother is got a disease. They of course can't afford to take him to the doctor, and he ends up having to try to heist vehicles to make some money, and ends up one of the cars is the Autobot Mirage, so he gets sucked into this whole big thing. We basically have the Allspark kind of storyline all over again, where there is this MacGuffin that has landed on Earth, and it signals Unicron and the Terracons to basically take over Earth. They're going to eat it Galactus style, and they need this device to bring Unicron in, and of course the Autobots have to stop it, and they're without the help there of the Maximals. So this one directed by Stephen Caple Jr., who had done Creed 2. Thought he did a really good job with Creed 2, and he comes in to take over the reins here. Interesting story. They had asked him to make Bumblebee 2 a couple years ago, and he was like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to fucking make a sequel to Bumblebee. Like, that's not my jam, but I do love Transformers. Maybe we'll talk again down the road. And then finally the studio kind of came back to him and said, you know, would you still maybe not want to do it? What do you want to do? And he said, I'll do it if we can do a full-on Transformers movie, and I do want to bring in the Maximals. Can we do Beast Wars, basically? And they were like, sure, go ahead, do what you want to do. So he came in, signed on, and made this movie here. So yeah, so let's go around here. Let's spend a couple minutes to kind of go through just thoughts of the franchise, right? Like, this has been a franchise been going since 2007, which was when the first Transformers hit with Michael Bay. Like I said, went on to do 5 movies. You know, we had Revenge of the Fallen, we had Dark of the Moon, we had Age of Extinction, and we had The Last Night. And then Bumblebee came out, which was directed by Travis Knight. So we shifted directors for Bumblebee. Kind of, like I said, kind of took a step back with Bumblebee, kind of made more of a family-friendly, old school kind of Transformers movies in the 80s, not as big as bombastic as the other Michael Bay films. And a lot of people love that, right? A lot of people, the Bumblebee is the best one, and really kind of brought in a new kind of group of fans. But then to move into this and kind of jump 10 years or so and kind of, you know, change up the cast again, right? No Haley Steinfeld, we're kind of going in a different direction, but it's still a sequel. And then kind of, you know, where we leave off at the end of this movie. But what's your guys' journey through the Transformers films? You know, what's your highs, your lows? Kind of like, have you ever truly cared? Were the ones that stood out, things that you hated? Just everything, kind of to put it out where your expectation was going into Rise of the Beast. So, Frigginz, I'll start with you on this one.
Sweet. You know, I loved Transformers as a kid. Had some of the toys. You know, I was more of a G.I. Joe fan myself, but nice little optimist you got there. So, but big into the Transformers.
Yes, Frigginz.
I remember like just absolutely loving the Transformers movie, the animated one, the first one that came out. And then when they finally came out with the live action Transformers, I thought it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. It was like in my top favorite movies for a long time. Absolutely loved Bumblebee fighting Barricade, with Barricade being that cool Mustang that looked like a police officer car.
Are you ladies man 267? Are you ladies man 267? Where are the glasses?
That was definitely the high point. and then immediately being disappointed by the second one. I felt it was just kind of a shift in the wrong direction. Now the third one is kind of where I was like a hit and miss, feeling like kind of halfway didn't like it, halfway really liked it. I'll say to this day, like I still think of like one of the best cinematic scenes I've ever seen is in that third movie when the soldiers are jumping out of the plane as you're seeing the tunnel and like the plane's falling down in front of it. I mean, that's just an amazing shot. And
The whole
Age
fight
of
in
Ex-
Chicago is amazing.
yeah, that is a great
I
fight
love
scene.
it.
And Age of Extinction with Mark Wahlberg, I thought was like, okay, it's still kind of half and half, but I thought it was getting better. And then after that, I was out. The night one, I've seen it now, but I've never like sat down and watched it all the way through. I watched like chunks of it as like, here's the first 10 minutes. And another day I was like, oh yeah, I remember this is where I had left off, and watched the next 20 minutes. And then, so I've seen it. I have seen the whole thing, but all in these random chunks because I did not like it at all. And Bumblebee, I think I've watched like 15 minutes of it and just got distracted with something else. And it's like, yeah, I don't think this is
Wow,
for me.
really?
Yeah. So it was.
So you've never finished Bumblebee?
Never finished Bumblebee. I just
Wow, I'm
couldn't
shocked.
get into it. I
feel like you would love Bumblebee.
Interesting. I don't know. Maybe
Especially for you to say you gave up after 15 minutes, because the first 15 minutes are the best part of the movie.
Well,
So,
that,
like,
that
if
makes
you
me
give
even
up that
worse.
Because I mean, you get the Cybertron fight, that shit straight out the cartoon in the beginning.
that
of that movie.
part
It's
I
so
liked,
good.
but then like I don't know. It's
That's
yeah.
good. You got to give it a chance, man. You got to.
Maybe I'll give it
Good
another
movie.
shot. But
It's a great movie, man.
so that was kind of like my journey with it. And I think for me, I've always been more disappointed than enjoyed after the first one. They've always they never gave me the Transformers that I wanted, or if they did, they weren't exactly right, or they're barely in it. So I wasn't getting the characters I wanted to see.
Yeah.
And I struggle a lot with the overemphasis on the humans than the robots themselves. And obviously I know they got to do that because of budgetary reasons or whatever, but I never thought that they really like nailed out like a good human cast. Always seems to be kind of, I don't know, just a little extra. So I definitely have an up and down relationship with it. I think overall though, I like it more than I dislike it, but it's never, ever since that first movie experience, I've never been like, oh my God, that was so awesome. Until now.
When time began.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, before I kind of dig into this one, I'll see where Peeps is at
Yes,
with
Pastor
your
the Peeps.
history.
Take us through your journey of Cybertron.
It's funny. I think DX, you and I, man, I think we even had this conversation back several years ago when one of the Transformers movies came out and we talked about them all. But I'm right there with Frigginz. I enjoyed Transformers a lot as a kid. Didn't really get the toys. They were a little expensive. I think I got some, but not the ones I wanted. And like I remember watching the teaser. I don't know if you guys remember the teaser to Transformers, but it was like this like
one on Mars.
The Mars Land Rover, and it's just looking. I'm like, oh, what's this? And then you see like a robot is like Transformers.
Yeah.
So that was pretty. It was pretty exciting. And then to watch the first movie, like when that movie starts and blackout, and then does that little EMP and it blows up all the like. I got chills in that scene, and from then, man, that movie, man. I liked it a lot. Let's just say that. As the movie's going on and everything, they were a little like jazz. I'm like, what a useless, pointless character. But the first
you want a piece of me? I'll take two.
I remember watching it knowing that it had its flaws, but like it was such a great movie. I had such a good time, still do to this day. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Like Frigginz, then the second one came out. I found myself being extremely excited about it, especially with Megatron coming back.
Constructicons.
Right. And then seeing all that and like, wow, all this cool stuff is going to happen. But again, and I think there's even like a scene in that one that was like filmed in Tucson, Arizona. I'm like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that one.
It's the museum in Washington, D.C. with all those mountains.
Yeah.
That movie, it went a little bit too far. Like they were like teleporting all over the place. I guess we're in a
Yes.
sci-fi world of robots, so it's fine. I just didn't know they
Right.
could be like, hey, let's go here, whoop, and they just teleported. All right, it's fine. A lot of issues with that one. I could have fixed that movie. I could have fixed it
I
very
could've
well,
fixed it.
but whatever. Third movie. Oh my gosh, that was the one with Leonard Nimoy, right? That one started getting me very upset, especially with those two racially
Yeah.
inappropriate.
No, that was in 2. Those
No,
guys were in 2.
that's right. That's right.
That was in 2.
Yeah, the two racist guys. Yeah, they were
Oh
in
my
2.
gosh, yeah. Well, reason why I didn't like 2, but yeah. Third one, I don't remember third one. I remember
Had the caterpillar that was going through the building.
Yes, that was dope. I remember
So
that.
good.
I remember the trailer for
It's
that
the Battle
one.
of Chicago, man. That shit was so
Yeah.
badass.
The trailer got me super excited for that one. And yes, and then
Shockwave.
Shockwave, yeah, I don't know.
Soundwave. That's right.
No. The main
Yeah,
bad guy.
Soundwave.
He had the single eye. I think it was.
Yeah,
like
that was
Shockwave.
Shock
Soundwave.
something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That was Soundwave. The one that had the cassette tape we popped out.
Nope.
Not
That's
him?
No, the
Nah.
guy riding the worm. Yeah,
The one that rode the river says, I think it was Shock something.
yeah. Anywho, he was dope. And yeah, so I like that one. A lot of issues with it, like Starscream getting taken out by Sam. Like, shut up, it's stupid. A lot of frustrating things about that one. And then then the Mark Wahlbergs, it just goes so far in a different direction. Like it's kind of a reboot, but it's not a reboot, but everything is still canonical. And yeah, like you could tear those movies apart. I feel like you should, because especially the last one where Merlin and King Arthur, and I don't know, man. Like I think I checked out. Like I've seen the whole movie, but I could not tell you what happens at the end. That was during the time where good guys and bad guys are fighting each other. Kong versus Godzilla, Dom versus The Rock, Bumblebee versus Optimus, and whatever. Anyways,
Evil Optimus. Yeah.
and then this movie, and then this movie happened. Bumblebee was dope. Bumblebee's disappointing because I wanted John Cena to not be that stereotype, but whatever. I think if John Cena would just been a good guy, I would have loved that movie. But whatever.
He's good by the end.
Yeah, but he was like Captain Ahab up until that point. Let's get that robot.
Well,
He's a military man.
That's the thing about Bumblebee. I think you mentioned earlier, Don, with the introduction of Mirage. He takes it over, because the downfall of Bumblebee is the fact that he can't talk, and they stick to that radio voice changing to different things. And
he becomes
I feel
like a cute giant gizmo, I think.
Yeah,
but it's cute. Yeah,
and that
'cause
works
he
in
can
the
communicate through
first
radio.
movie, but he literally got his voice fixed by the end. Like, let him just have a voice.
No, the story said it didn't work after that.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he never had the voice working.
He got it fixed in one of them. I remember.
He did.
No, they always tried. They were like, we can't figure it out. Permission to stay with the boy.
I think that's one of those things where it's like the long joke that went too far. Like, but at the same
his
time,
voice though at the beginning of Bumblebee, before it got fucked up.
well, see, they should just let it be fixed. But like the cool thing though is I didn't realize like how much he really like kind of meant to me until this one. Like when he gets stabbed, and I'm just like, oh shit!
I saw that in the trailer, and I'm like, they're not going to do that. They're not doing that.
That's a fake thing. But then his comeback, like when he's in the plane and does the Captain America.
Don't call it a comeback.
Don't call it a comeback. Oh man, it was dope. I got so excited. So like, even though I was really liking Mirage more, it reminded me of like how much I like Bumblebee too, and it like got me all like.
Bumblebee is awesome.
He really is.
It was funny when I was showing my daughter Bumblebee, and when he does have his voice in the beginning, my daughter's like, "He's a boy? I thought Bumblebee was a girl this whole time." Like, she was so mad that he was a dude. She was like, "Oh man." I'm like, "That's his real voice." She's like, "Oh, I thought it was a girl."
Dang.
Oh, that's sad. RC was cool. I loved RC's
Yeah,
design.
she liked
Like,
RC.
they nailed her. She's really cool.
Yeah, they nailed the designs in this new one, man. They were very like right out the cartoon, so I thought it was great.
And that's the thing. I want those designs if they go into the future, like the 90s. Like they use the best looking Porsche. They had the truck that looked just like the Optimus original truck, way cooler than the like new modernized, bigger trucks that they had with the stupid fucking flamethrowers on them or flames on them or whatever. Like, I really appreciated the like classic Optimus look in this movie, and that's really what made it sing for me.
If they didn't get all those deals with those big auto companies, though, so
they did with Porsche because Mirage was kicking ass.
Well, yeah. So for me, kind of through the journey, like, I love this franchise. Like, I'm the biggest Transformers fan. Obviously grew up on it, love the cartoon movie. And then the 2007 original Michael Bay is one of my all-time favorite films. When people are like, what's your top 10, top 5? That movie's up there. It's in that category. Love that first movie. Revenge of the Fallen obviously did take a step down from that first one. I still like the movie, but it definitely has its issues. There's a lot of good fight scenes in that movie to kind of keep it afloat. That movie also came out during a writer's strike, so you could tell like they kind of fell apart. Like, they filmed it and the script wasn't all the way there, so they just kind of tried to do what they could because it was during that strike. And then 3 came out, right? Dark of the Moon, and they super won me back on Dark of the Moon. I think that movie is incredible. Like I said, that end sequence, the Battle of Chicago, is like over an hour long, and that's just like the whole like culmination of that movie is just bombastic action, things going through buildings. It's like the Avengers, just everything's happening, the military, the Transformers, like shit is going down, and that movie is just so awesome. I agree with you, Peeps. Like, that when that trailer came out, we were just like, oh my god. Like, it starts off with the moon, and then you see there's been the machines in the moon, and they waking up, and it's just like, oh dude, here we go. And then obviously things kind of shifted with Age of Extinction. I'm gonna go out. I love Age of Extinction. Like, that movie is my jam. I liked Mark Wahlberg stepping into that one. I like how we kind of went more action, right? We got the Dinobots coming in at the end. There's a lot to love in that movie. I think that movie probably has they probably have the best like overall like action sequences in that movie. I saw that one I think fun. 4 or 5 times in the theater. Like, I loved Age of Extinction, and it's long too. I think that one's like 2 hours and like 45 minutes or some shit. Like, that movie's long, but I love Age of Extinction. And then Last Night came out, and I, even as a fan of the series, I was like, Last Night's just kind of
so rough.
Like, they definitely it let me down, man. I don't know where they were going with it. I don't even think, out of all the movies, I don't think I ever revisited that one. Like, I've rewatched all of them a dozen times. I've only seen Last Night one time. So I'm actually kind of curious to go back and watch it again, just because I'm so like, I don't even remember what the fuck happened. I remember, Optimus went to space at the end of Age of Extinction. Then he meets his maker, and she makes him bad. And then he fights Bumblebee, and it's just all over the place. And then Unicron's there, and he's trying to come in at the end. And Merlin, and then they've been there forever, and they fought the Nazis, and it was so much going on in the Last Night, dude. So then we kind of we take that Bay break, right? And then we get Bumblebee, and I really like Bumblebee, but for me, Bumblebee feels so different than those first 5 movies, right? Like, it's brought down several notches to be more kid friendly. It is a more of a family film. It's a girl in her car, and it's very just kind of basic. It works on a lot of levels because Haley Steinfeld's great in it, and Bumblebee's awesome. John Cena, and you get some other, there's some stuff there that really works, and it does have good heart, and it's a good family film. Like, it hits all the notes. But at the end of the day, I was like missing the big action of the Bay films, and I kind of wanted more, right? Like, and that's why I like this movie a lot, because I feel like this movie is the perfect kind of blend of giving me more of that Bumblebee stuff, but then turning it up a couple notches to not quite go so Baytastic, but get kind of there. Like, he lands kind of in a sweet spot where you get like the best of both worlds with this film, right? You get better humans. They don't overdo it. You do get a lot of Autobots. The action sequences are great. You can really follow the designs of them, whereas like in the Bay films, that was always a critique, was that they were all kind of so mechanical and kind of bland, especially the Decepticons. You didn't know who the fuck was who, right? Like, it was just kind of a lot of metal clashing and fighting in the sky, and you're like, who is that? And you don't really get a grasp of who the characters are. Whereas in this one, you're like, that's Optimus, that's Bumblebee, that's Mirage, that's RC, that's Wheeljack. You know, like you can see them all. You know, that's Optimus Primal. That's, you know, like everybody kind of fits a good role there. And even the three Terrorcons, they reminded me a lot of like Superman 2. That was like Zod and his like big dude and his girl, right? Like from like that was the three Kryptonians coming to Earth and wrecking shop. And I like you could tell that had to have been the inspiration because it's so played in. The girl was super badass. She was like, I'm coming. Like and just this movie, like I thought they killed it in this film, man. I had such a blast with this movie. Like I said, again, you had the heart, you had the family stuff, you had but it was super funny. You know, I didn't know how I'd feel about Pete Davidson being a voice. I'm like, is he going to take away from it too much? You know, I like Pete, but sometimes it could be too much and it could be distracting. And he was the perfect voice for this, man. I was laughing my ass off at this film, you know, and my daughter was laughing. She was like, this movie's so funny. And like, it just made it so enjoyable. And just the battle scene at the end's incredible, even though it is kind of that beam from the sky and generic kind of big landscape battle that it's like, whoa, we just got a big empty field and everybody's fighting on it. Like very end game style, but it works, right? Like it's badass. They're all doing their shit. And you know, I don't know how I felt about the Iron Man suit, like at the end, like with Noah, like I was. Did you see? I was like,
that was great.
That's straight out the cartoons, though.
Exactly. So. That's why I like it so much.
True. Like I forgot about that, and then somebody had tweeted that, and I was like, oh yeah, the suit. Like, but at the time, I was just kind of like, okay, like Mirage is dead, and then somehow he's like, I'm not quite dead yet. Here's my body. Like, and then like it just goes on him. So. But yeah, the way it plays out, and then obviously, you know, I want to talk more about the kind of surprise at the end separately. But yeah, man, I came out of this thing with a massive smile on my face, super happy, glad to hear that they want to make a sequel. They want to bring Stephen Caple Jr. back. Obviously, the direction this thing could go is exciting, man. Like especially with the idea of maybe they could bring Haley Steinfeld back and you could really loop this thing all together, right? Like reunite her with Bumblebee. And I think that there's so much potential where they could go from here, especially bringing in a new, like a more old school version of Megatron and Starscream. And I think that'd be really tight to see, right? So let's do it, man. So yeah, this movie, man, just super happy, like as a Transformers fan coming out of this one. So back to you, Frigginz, kind of like going into this one, man, like what'd you think, highlights and feelings and vibes and all the in between?
I didn't really see too many trailers of it. I saw pieces of trailers, so I kind of was avoiding most of it. And honestly, wasn't on my radar at all because I've dropped so down on the Transformers films, and I couldn't have been more happy, more surprised, more pleased with what we got. I love Anthony Ramos. He's one of my favorite. I'll call him a new actor, although he's been around for a little bit, but kind of new, I think, to the general public. I thought he was fantastic. I love the 90s setting. I think it just adds so much, not only for the looks of the cars, but like there's extra turmoil where you can't just grab on your phone and Google stuff and things like that. Like, so there needs to be those additional steps.
Robots attacking. How do I handle
it? I think it just makes the setting was just perfect, makes things a little bit more interesting. The voice cast blew me away. Like when Optimus Primal comes up, I was like, is that Ron Perlman? And I think what I mentioned earlier about some of my dislikes for the earlier ones was I wasn't getting characters that I really liked. Like I was dying to see Cup. I wanted to see Hot Rod. When they did bring Hot Rod, it was like barely anything at all. And so to see like someone cool like Mirage, to see Optimus Primal, Air Razor, Cheetor, Rhinox, even though those ones weren't in it that much, it was still awesome to finally get to see some of those characters. And I'm a huge, massive fan of Beast Wars. I think Beast Wars had a bigger hit for me on my like nerd development than original Transformers did even. Like I had all the Beast Wars toys. I didn't have the old school Transformers, and like Peeps said, it was a little too much for us back then. But when it came to the Beast Wars, I had a ton of those. So my only disappointment there was no Rat Trap. Rat Trap is super awesome. It would have been great, but hopefully maybe for a sequel.
It's like the Bumblebee of that show. Yeah.
He is the best, man. But anyway,
he turns into a rat. That's cool.
Super cool. He's like Rocket with the big old gun.
Great.
Oh man. So but when I walked out of here, I walked out thinking, well, first off, like this was some amazing action scenes. Every time the action kicked in, I was just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I hadn't had that experience in Transformers in so long, so it really stood out. And even the human scenes were really, really great, in particular with Anthony Ramos. Although I could guys, I know me, but they could have cut out the kid stuff entirely.
Oh, dude, the heart of the movie. The heart of the movie.
It didn't need it. And and here's the thing. I talked to a few other people that like have seen it, and they mentioned like that they really enjoyed seeing Dominique as Elena. And I feel like she did a good job. She was great in her role. Again, though, I feel like her character probably could have been cut out entirely from the movie, and they could have still accomplished the same thing. And I say that because I feel like the only kind of negative I had was that at times with the human stuff, I felt like maybe those aspects took a little long. Where this movie did a good job is giving us more of the robots. That's what I'm really watching a Transformers film for. So I think if we were only following Anthony Ramos and we didn't have another character to follow, like I think that would have felt even more like that whole like focus on the robots and not so much the people. Although with her inclusion, she brought some interesting stuff to the table. She was a cool character. She did a great job in her role. I just feel like if we take that out, it trims it down a little bit, and you get to still maintain that focus. So when I left, though, I was like, this is if I start the movie. This might be my favorite movie of the year, apart from Spider-Man. Like I don't know. This is really, really good. And the more I thought about it, I did have to bring it down a little bit for some of those things that after I thought about it.
The more I overthought it for some reason.
But it doesn't take away from the fact that I had a blast. I absolutely loved it. I thought all the characters were cool. The Beast Wars designs were amazing. And the voice acting for everyone was great. So let's get more of this. I mean, I want a full on Beast Wars. Give me some more Maximals and Anthony Ramos, man. Let's do it.
Yeah. The Terracons I thought were super cool. Scourge I thought was a good villain, voiced by Peter Dinklage of all people. Who I thought did an amazing job. Yeah, wow. So he was really strong. I like that when he killed people, he took their symbol and like put it on as like a badge, and
so
it was tight, dude. He ripped off Bumblebee's little Autobot, and stuck it on there. The designs, everything was just so cool there, man. Peeps, what about you?
Yeah, man, I saw this movie twice, one day right after the other. I went on a Thursday and went back on a Friday. Specifically because I just knew my kids were going to enjoy this movie. And I was just like, hey, y'all, I want to take y'all to a movie. Like, what? Transformers? What? I don't really want to watch that. Trust me, y'all gonna dig it. And like it didn't disappoint. Like they loved this movie. And my daughter was saying like oh, I love Bumblebee, and she was saying it like shortly after the movie started, and she's like, is Bumblebee in it? And she was like, I thought he was on the picture. I'm like, oh, he's in it. Just wait. And then that moment happened, and they're like, no, they're super dramatic, but like all the moments that we saw coming, right? Like we knew he was coming back. We knew it was gonna be like, that the Eagles at the end of the movie, but like just I know they kind of saw it coming too, but they were just so excited to see all that. And that's what I love that. I love that stuff, and I love those moments. Now, movie itself, like exactly what you guys are saying. Like it was funny. I thought Pete Davidson's Mirage was great. I didn't know anybody who was voicing in this movie. Was that Michelle Yeoh that was the Eagle?
Yeah, she was Air Razor.
Yeah, man. And
you can't mistake that voice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
Optimus.
It was, man, it was a lot of fun. Fred was saying, I love the 90s element. I love the music, man. I was just jamming that whole time. And I don't know, like I disagree, Fred. Like I understand what you're saying. I 100% do, because we didn't really get back into, like, we didn't see Optimus Primal until like most of the movie has already happened, and then we get the rest of them. So you take some of that time with the humans and spend it, but like that's like also part of Transformers. Like Transformers isn't just them. Like there are like a bunch of like I think they were
Sure.
like kids really or humans that are there with them. And I know the story is mainly about the Transformers, but yeah, I don't know. I thought it was fine. But I agree. I definitely wanted more of the Maximals. And I was kind of surprised that, and you know, I don't know. I'm gonna talk about it all in one. We're not doing nitpicks later. So I was surprised that we didn't get any Decepticons or Predacons. I thought we would have gotten something or some kind of like, you know, the villain, the good guys are winning too much. It's like bringing the, you know, the reinforcements, and you see that at one point maybe he had taken over. What was the big planet thing's name? Unicron. Maybe Unicron had taken over some of the Predacons, and he's just kind of enslaved because I think he said like their souls belong to him. So he enslaved them, and then once they defeat him at the end, you know, their eyes will change colors, and then they're no longer a part of it. So I don't know. I just thought we would have seen some more villains. Another nitpick is at the end when you think everyone's going to lose. Yes, when BB shows up, great moment. But I thought it would have been even greater, and this is why it messes the movie up for me because I'm like, if they would have did this, it would have been great.
Yeah.
If that would have been the Decepticons that show up and start, and their thing is like, we want the key for ourselves. We want to get to, we want to get back to Cybertron. So we're going to get the key, not you, Optimus, and then it just becomes like the enemy of my enemy kind of thing, and they're like unintentionally fighting together because they're both fighting towards the same thing. And then at the end of the movie, when it gets destroyed, they're like, "Oh crap, man, we lost out. All right,
until next time."
Exactly, super 80s. Like, we'll get you, or maybe even like Scourge is about to kill Optimus, and then Megatron would be like, shoots him in the face, like, I'm the only one that can kill Optimus.
He turns into the gun, and then Optimus uses him to
yes, Fred.
Save it for the sequel. Save it for the sequel.
So
too much for this one.
That man, that would have been great. But yeah, I thought Robo Mech Suit was great. It was honestly, I enjoyed this movie a lot more than I thought I would. You know, we'll talk about rankings, or ratings, all that later. But like, definitely my second favorite Transformers movie.
Same.
And it unfortunately that first one, it's hard to beat those feels. But like, this movie was just really dope, and it was really surprising. That man, them just tumbling and fighting down a hill as the other cars is just like driving around. It's like, this is just so cool. It wasn't as big as a Michael Bay movie, but it's still like,
that's why I think it was better. That's why I think it was better.
And then I completely forgot about that after credits scene. Frigginz is like, you know, he does that thing. He's super cocky nowadays. He's like, I know what's going to happen in this movie. This is going to be a thing. That's Sector 7 right there. You know, that's Sector 7. Watch, he's going to flip the card. It's going to say Sector 7. Look, watch this. And he was wrong.
I was so wrong.
Wrong.
I was so wrong.
I will say, I thought the same. I thought the same thing, Frigginz. I thought the same thing. I was like, this is the beginning of Sector 7. We're just tying it all together. Pleasantly surprised. We'll talk about that in a second. What I loved about this one was the evolution of Optimus, right? Like, Optimus was a fucking dick. He was a dick in this movie. He was like, fuck the humans. I don't give a shit. I want to get back to my planet. Fuck them all.
Completely different than
and I was like, damn, dude. Yeah, but what I liked about it was by the end of the movie, he's earned their respect, right? He learned from Optimus Primal. Right, well, that's what I mean. Yeah, and Optimus Primal really kind of laying the groundwork, right? They're more than meets the eye, these humans, you know, and kind of gave him the speech, and which was funny because Optimus Prime was supposed to be his idol, right? He's like, I got my name from this guy, and look at this guy being a jackass, like just he's all rude, and like we've lived around the humans my whole life, and they've been great, you know. So I thought that was awesome. Yeah, I thought that was just so cool, and I like that slowly throughout the movie he opens up a little bit more and more, and then by the end of the movie he's the Optimus we know and love, right? So I thought that was a cool transition because we've never seen this version of Optimus before. He's jaded, right? You know, and that was really, really cool to see. And then just going back to the humor, man, I just love the humor in this movie, man. I just it killed me so much when he meets the brother and the brother's like, this is your robot? And he's like, no, he's just a friend from work. And he was like, a friend from work? You've been inside me.
Inside me.
And I was like,
Yes.
oh my God. I laughed so loud and hard at that line. It was so funny, dude. And just all the little jabs, dude, that he just
Don't
does,
ask.
you know?
Don't
I
ask
mean,
what part of my body that came from.
yeah, don't ask what part of my body that came from. Like, it just is so good. Peeps, like you said, like taking my daughter to see this one, because I took my daughter to see Bumblebee when it came out, but she
Yeah.
was so little, like she didn't even remember much of Bumblebee. So this is the first kind of, you're gonna remember this one. We're gonna go see this.
Yeah.
And she loved it. And I asked her the other night, like, out of all the movies we've seen this year, like, what's your favorite movie? And she said this one. She was like,
Got it.
Transformers is my favorite movie of the year.
I
She
can see
asked me
that.
last night, can we go see it again? She wants to go back to
Awesome.
the theater, see it again. And I'm just like, oh, my heart, like, you know, like, I'm just like, that's so cool. Like, my daughter like loves this Transformers, right?
Yeah.
And then so we watched the 2007 Bay one the other night, because I was like, now you gotta see the rest of the story. So we started going through and kind of, you know, checking that out. So she's seeing the story and kind of like, oh, you know, so this one takes place after, and she's kind of putting it all together, you know, with the Bumblebee and kind of the time frames and stuff. But yeah, just seeing her love this one and really just, you know, because she loved Spider-Verse. I mean, when we left that theater, she was like, that's my favorite movie of the year. I love that movie. And then when we saw Transformers, even above, you know, this, I asked her that after we saw Flash, you know, we had seen Guardians, like she's seen a lot of movies this year, and she went right to Transformers. So really,
this
really cool
year,
to see,
man.
you know.
This year is incredible. Like, we were only
Been a good year.
halfway through this year.
So
You
many
know.
moves.
Oh man, I'm excited.
First quarter was rough, but this second quarter has been just like blah blah blah
What?
blah blah.
Megan was a great start.
Oh my God. Cocaine Barrel.
Cocaine Bear for sure. All right, so we got to move on to Flash, but let's go around here. Oh, before we do that, let's we set it up. We were going to talk about this post credits, or before the post credits, because it's actually at the end of the movie. You see, he goes for his job interview. He's getting back to basics. The guy's asking him questions about the job, and he's like, you know, what about Peru? And he's like, what? I don't know about Peru. I've never been there before. And he's like, oh, you know, you're big friends, you know. And he's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, oh, good answer. You know, like, we want you to come work for us. And kind of long story short, he goes into, you know, we're going to take care of your brother. We're going to pay all his medical bills. You know, you save the world. We're going to help you out. And if you change your mind, here's my card. Let me know. And the door opens up and you see all this stuff in the back. There were all this futuristic kind of tech. And same thing, like Frigginz said, I was like, dude, Sector 7, we're setting it up. Here we go. And he flips the card over and it says G.I. Joe. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, there's not many things that surprise me anymore in movies that haven't been spoiled for me at some point. And this was not. Like, that was a pleasant surprise. My whole theater went woo when he flipped that card over. Like, it got a big pop. Everybody was excited. And what a cool setup, man. You know, and that's something that the director, Stephen Cable Jr., said he brought to Paramount. He said he brought the comic book when they crossed over, and he said, I want to work towards this. Like, what do you guys think? And finally got them to approve it and was like, yo, let's do it. So
the Hasbro
what a
cinematic
cool way to
universe.
transition, right? I mean, dude, like, it makes sense, right? Like, you could go back to the Bay movies and be like, that's G.I. Joe with Josh Duhamel and all those guys, right? Like, that's the G.I. Joes. Like everything we talked about, skydiving out in the third movie and everything that's happened, right? Like, this is the perfect franchise to have a military group work with the Autobots against the Decepticons and everybody else they got going on. Perfect setup, and exciting, because G.I. Joe on its own doesn't seem to move the needle too much. But you think we're gonna merge this with Transformers? Yeah, let's see what we got here. So
all we need to do.
Frigginz, what'd you think of that reveal?
I mean,
what'd you think of that?
Cops, yeah. Yo, Joe, I'm all about this. I'm a huge G.I. Joe fan. Growing up, that was like my main jam as a kid. I had a billion G.I. Joe toys. I love it, and it fits in with the comic world. They already have had comics where G.I. Joe and Transformers mixed together. So this idea of, can you imagine seeing like a cool, badass military team like interacting with these vehicles, and like I could see them like launching a dude out. Like, can you imagine like Snake Eyes riding a Mirage and like launching him out? He flips out with swords. I mean, just, it's gonna be absolutely cool. I don't know if it'll be good, hopefully, but but it will be cool nonetheless. I'm really looking forward to this combination. It's something that I've seen them talk about. I've seen you report about people saying that they've wanted to do this in the past, but never thought it was something that would actually come out. So, again, it's straight from the comics. It's gonna be, something. But I'm looking forward to it. It hits all the nostalgia for me, so I'm in.
Fast forward in 3 years, we're gonna be reviewing it, and Friggin's gonna be like, when Snake Eyes popped out of Optimus, it was just so unbelievable.
Yeah,
and I could not, but it was just wouldn't have happened that way. So
and it had
too
many.
Stars.
It was too much people. It focused too much on people.
Yeah, Snake Eyes had 3 swords, and in the comic book, he only had 2. So upon further reflection, 4.5 stars out of 4.5.
Right, we'll see. We'll see.
Peeps, what'd you think about the G.I. Joe review?
Man, I thought it was incredible. It really got my brain cooking on wow, like they're doing a connected universe with 80s cartoons. What else could they connect? And I literally started looking like all Hasbro, the umbrella. And I'm like, they can't really do anything else. Like maybe Mask. I think it's probably the only
Mask. I want a Mask solo film. Give me don't merge that yet. I need Mask by itself.
And I guess that's my only concern really is like G.I. Joe is more than just a group of like military guys, right? Like they all have personalities, and them with the Transformers, and then you want, I'm assuming we would want to see Anthony Ramos and even Haley Steinberg like come back. Like that would be great to see all these, but like that's a lot. Like it's a lot of characters, and that's always my worries when it comes to these movies, is them being able to evenly proportion the characters' moments. So does this mean that we're going to get other G.I. Joe movies and other Transformers movies to build up to a team up event? Maybe, probably not, but maybe. I don't know. But all in all, amazing end credits I didn't see coming. And I swear, like if they throw like He-Man into this, I'm gonna lose it. No, that's not Hasbro, but I'm gonna lose it.
And then the one actual post-credit scene, Mirage comes back, he rebuilds him, so Mirage is back in action. So that was good to see that he's back. So all right, let's go around scores before we jump to our next film here. So I know Frigginz, you had to adjust upon further reflection.
Just a little bit lower. I went 4.5 out of 5, giving it just a notch for some of the lengthy human pieces. But other than that, absolute blast. Still highly recommended. But 4.5.
Yeah, I'm also sticking with that 4.5. Like I said, had a blast. Love the movie. I can see myself watching it again. Just something just didn't quite give it that perfect score for me. But 4.5. Show.
All right, well, I'll go the 5, man. Coming out the theater,
fair.
It's all about that feeling. Did you have a good time? Did you have a blast? And that's what I had, especially like having my daughter with me and having her love it, and just I think it hyped me up even more. So just really had a really good time. Like I said, got the laughs, got the family, got the heart, got the action. It gave me everything that I needed to do. Like I said, I love the Bay films. I thought Bumblebee needed to go a little bit more towards that direction, and this one fit that void and kind of gave me the best of both worlds, which really pushed it there for me. So nice 5 out of 5 from me. And then now we're going to speed on over to our third movie, and we're going to talk The Flash, baby.
We all got the whack running.
So finally, we go into The Flash, which is kind of crazy, man. This has been the never-ending journey to get to this film. They announced this movie when season 1 of the Flash TV show was coming out in the CW. Yep. That show ran 9 seasons for 9 years, and we just now got this fucking movie after the Flash just had its series or show finale, right? So insane to think how long that took, right? He was obviously cast by Zack Snyder. He was introduced in Batman v Superman. We got him in the Justice League, and then boom, he was supposed to get this solo movie. And it went through director after director and script after script, and it just kind of lingered. And then finally, they hired Andy Muschietti, director of the It films, and he came in and got everybody together, started to putting this movie together, got delayed again, COVID. This movie should have came out like 2 years ago, just kept getting pushed. Finally, it is here. This has been an interesting one because this is kind of as we're wrapping up the DCEU that started with Man of Steel and that whole journey of all these characters. How is this movie going to go? How is it going to take us to take us down this multiverse again of, well, how are we going into this James Gunn universe if this is still going on, and how is this going to fix things or change things, right? We got Flashpoint story, we've seen this done before. Barry going back in time trying to save his mom, but of course the butterfly effect, shifting things, changing things. How is that going to affect everything? DC been on kind of a rocky road lately, to say the least, right? Like Black Adam comes out, underperforms according to what they wanted. Shazam! Fury of the Gods came out a couple months ago, super low performed, one of the lowest box offices ever for a DC film. And then Flash, man, we go into Flash with a lot of hype, a lot of early reviews coming out saying, this movie's incredible, it's one of the best action movies ever, it's one of the best comic book movies ever. Like James Gunn coming out saying, I think it's one of the best comic book movies I've ever seen. Like all these people hyping. They played it early at CinemaCon back in April, and everybody at CinemaCon said one of the best movies ever, like just super hype. And then the movie finally hits, and most are favorable, but as the days have gone on, I'm starting to see this piggyback of some hate, and I'm seeing some people talk shit, and I'm seeing a lot of different views and opinions, and so you're starting to see a drop, right? When it first came out, it was like a 95%, then it was an 85%, then it was a 75%. I think it's at 67% as of right now from critics, but 95% on the audience rating again, so super high on the audience scale. But a lot of critics being very judgmental on this one, which is kind of crazy based on the early buzz and everything we've heard, right? Obviously, this movie's had its own controversies too because of Ezra Miller. And Ezra Miller's gone through a lot of stuff over the last couple of years. He's been arrested a couple times. He's got restraining orders. He's got all kinds of stuff going on to where, it was like, well, what are they going to do with this movie? Are they going to scrap it? Are they going to put it straight to streaming? What are they going to do, right? But it was a $200 million movie, and it'd be hard to scrap something like this, especially when you have a very well directed film and you have high profile other people in the film. You got Michael Keaton coming back as Batman, and Ben Affleck's last turn as his Batman, and different things and surprises going on. Like, is it fair to everybody else in this film to scrap it just because of one person's mistakes? Ezra Miller, they put out a press release, maybe 5-6 months ago saying, mental health and getting help and trying to get better. And I did see him on the red carpet, and he seemed very much, apologetic and very down to earth. It seemed like he was really trying to get his head on straight. Who knows how much of that was a PR thing, but it seemed like he was in a good place, and that's good. We definitely want to. This guy had a ton of potential before this movie. A lot of indie films, a lot of people thinking, like Sky's the limit, for acting ability, everything, and I really liked his portrayal of Barry Allen in Justice League. I liked his quirkiness. I liked what he brought to the role. It was a lot different than what we had with Grant Gustin on the CW show and everything that had kind of come. We had 9 years of a different person's portrayal, and I thought he played Barry very differently, and I liked his kind of ADD style to it that he kind of brought with it,
Yeah.
and I was just super excited about this movie just in general because I love Ben Affleck as Batman. I really wanted to see what he brought to this. I really loved the 1989 Batman, so I was super stoked to see Keaton come back, and just really see where they take the story, especially as we're kind of resetting the DC timeline right now. And before we get into more details, like kind of those overall thoughts again, like I was super hyped. One of my most anticipated films of the year, if not the most anticipated film of the year. I don't remember where I placed this one, but I think it was number 1 or number 2. It was definitely up there. So went into this one like very excited. It was number 2.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's see. What was my number 1?
Guardians.
Oh, okay. So so very excited on this one. So I went in with super hype. and then we'll talk about where it went from there. Frigginz, or no, I'll go to Peeps on this one. So where'd you go into this one, hype wise, and kind of your thoughts? I know DC is kind of a mixed bag for you, so kind of before we get into details, just where was your head going into that night?
Yeah, I mean, this movie did not make my top 10 anticipated. Like exactly what you were saying, like issues with Ezra Miller. That on its own, at one moment I was like, I'm not watching this movie. And then yes, like so many other people like are a part of this project. It is not just like, it feels like written, directed, starring him kind of thing. It's like, yeah, no, I'm out. But like, no, like there's so many other humans that are involved in making this art that like, yeah, I definitely want to check it out. The Flash as a character is not that intriguing to me. He's very interesting. He's an interesting character because I've seen so many different portrayals of the Flash. It's funny, like most Marvel characters, like animated movie and TV show, like they're always the same generally, but the Flash is generally different. And I didn't have a lot of like excitement going into this. Splash has never been like a favorite character of mine either. But like you were saying, I definitely liked the portrayal of this character in the Justice League movies. The effects of the lightning and like the way that they go about like the little slow motion scenes when Superman is like, it's a great effect. It's a great character. Yeah, they did the slow motion a lot in the original, and they did in this one too, where like he's moving super fast, but they slow it down, like kind of like when he touched the box, like as it hit the water and all that neat stuff. But yeah, man, like pretty excited for this movie, but at the same time, I was very, I was like, let me see. Let me see what's going to happen on this. Is it going to be great? Is it going to be horrible? Or is it going to be somewhere in the middle? We'll talk about that in a bit. But I was very nervous, I guess, kind of coming into this.
All right, Frigginz.
I had a little bit of an up and down as far as like my preparation. I think, in 2021, I want to say Flash was like my number 3 most anticipated. It was very high on my list. But then last year when we did the 20, and then maybe even 2022 was on there. I know for this year when we were doing our most anticipated list for this year, I didn't even put it on there. And much like Peeps, I was, there he goes with his pops again. And yeah, Flash is a cool character that I've liked as a kid. He's not ever been one of my, I'll say like favorites. But I really dug the 90s Flash TV show when I was a kid. I dressed up as Flash for Halloween one year. And, he's always kind of been there in my nerd lexicon, of characters that I liked from the Justice League. I remember being disappointed about the casting for Ezra Miller originally when they told us that they were being cast for the Justice League stuff. And then being relatively surprised and thought that they did a pretty good job in their role. But then when all the news hit about all this legal stuff that Ezra Miller was supposedly going through, and there's some stuff that I don't know that even can be disputed per se, I was really, really surprised that they weren't in jail, let alone, being able to still go on a red carpet or something to that nature. So, with that in mind, it really kind of impacted my excitement for the movie. So my excitement went down like right, as we're kind of approaching release. But after seeing all the Batman stuff, I mean, I'm like wearing my Batman shirt right now because that Batman 89 really just brought the hype back in the Batfleck, and Ben Affleck saying that this was the funnest he's ever had playing Batman, maybe because it was only 5 minutes, but it made me, I had to go watch Batman v Superman again, and just like it was glorious, and so my hype kind of got back up right before I went in the seats, but not because of the Flash. And I think that's really sad that I was going into a movie where the title character I could care less about. It was really just wanting to see the Batman versions that they were going to include. I feel like this movie was mostly just, what does this mean? Where am I going from here? What do I get out of this? and it wasn't excitement for the movie. It was excitement for everything else that comes along with it, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, because I think that that's been a lot of people's problem going into this movie, is a lot of people saying, what's the point, right? Like, this series is dead, the DCEU is dead, we're wrapping it up. Like, what's the point of these films right now if there is no grander scale, right? It's just about to be rebooted. We're going to start things all over with the Superman legacy that James Gunn's doing in 2025. So what's the point, right? Like, and to me, I never really bought the what's the point thing, because I feel like a good movie is a good movie, regardless of a bigger universe, right? Like, if it's
Yeah.
cool, it's cool. Like, it doesn't bother me that, I mean, yeah, I would like to see it continue, but it doesn't make me be like, I just don't care anymore, because I'm already
Sure.
seeing that about Aquaman 2 and stuff like that, that we still have stuff to get to, right? To really wrap this thing up. So yeah, so I think that that's a big one that kind of plays into the box office perspective that we've seen. Like, this movie here was finally hits. It's been years delayed, and it had all this hype, and then they were like, oh, it's estimating $70 million, which isn't that great. Like, for a big comic book movie that cost $200 million to make, we kind of need more than 70 million, right? Like, so maybe it'll overperform. We'll see what happens. And then the weekend comes and it makes 55 million. So it didn't even hit the 70 that they were already worried about. And then it makes 15 less to only break 55, so for all the shit that The Rock and Black Adam took, that movie made $67 million in its opening,
Even
so
Shazam made more, right? Like,
no, Shazam did not. Shazam
Oh, it
only made
didn't?
30 million.
Oh.
It was a horrible bomb.
I thought it made more.
It was the least ever. No.
Yeah.
Shazam barely made 100 million worldwide, and it's the
Oh, that must have been what I was thinking of. As
really bad. Yeah, and that was in its whole run. So I mean, like we just talked about, Spider-Verse made 120 in one weekend. So so yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Like, the box office has been rough on DC, right? Like, I mean, it's making you wonder. So for all those people thinking like, ooh, we already got the sequel written and we're already doing this and that, it's like, are you though? Are you though?
No
I don't know, because this movie's gonna lose a lot of money for the studio, unless it has crazy legs, which I just don't see happening. I mean, I think it'll hold up for this next weekend, and then you have Indiana Jones coming out, and you got Mission Impossible, and you got Oppenheimer, and you got Barbie, and you got all these other things coming out.
People aren't being nice. Like, they are bashing it a lot.
Yeah.
It's with the special effects.
It's crazy. This is another one of those films, again, that if you scroll down a Twitter timeline, you go from, I saw it 4 times already, this movie's incredible, and then the very next one's like, I fucking hated this movie. So like, it's again, it's just so all over the place, man. For me though, like, going back to just kind of our thoughts on stuff, like, I loved it. I absolutely love this movie. I had a blast. Like, it was super funny. Like, it was way funnier than I expected it to be. I did expect to laugh, obviously, because we saw how Ezra played Barry in Justice League, right? He was the comedic relief in that movie. I didn't expect it to be this funny. Like, I mean, it was super hilarious.
Basically,
and I
comedy.
Thought, and I thought they did an amazing job, like, playing 2 characters, man, playing the younger version of himself, and then obviously the current version, and playing against himself, like, literally the whole time. Thought he did an amazing job. Like you said, Ben Affleck, dude, he's my favorite Batman. I love seeing him. The opening scene was incredible. We got, Jeremy Irons coming back as Alfred, something I didn't really expect. I was like, yo, that's fucking cool. And we see that they're working together still, right? They have that bond now from Justice League, and he's helping out with everything, and then you get a little cameo from Wonder Woman, and again, you I love that.
That was
every
a fun
time,
joke
man,
there
we
with
get the
her
needle
though,
drop.
too.
Yeah, that was dope.
That was a fun joke there with her too, when the lasso was wrapped around.
Oh yeah,
lasso.
because she's got the lasso on him, and Batman's all like, it's great to see you. Like, it's like, she said, never gets old. Yeah. I like sex. I'm a virgin. So yeah, like, get your hands off the lasso. But yeah, great opening sequence, right? And then you get the whole kind of dialogue, him accidentally going back in time, seeing like, oh, I can kind of do this maybe, and talking to Bruce, hey, should I do this? And him being like, no, man, the events are what shape us, right? It's how we become who we are. Don't mess with time, man. The butterfly effect is going to screw shit up. Okay. Still does it, right? And then now we find out it's a different universe. See, his mom is still alive, right? He put the can of tomatoes in the cart. I loved, again, we go back to family in this episode a lot, like, because we had it in Spider-Verse, we had it in Transformers. I felt like that was so strong here,
Don't
man. I
forget
really
about
felt
Fast X.
yeah, definitely Fast X, but we're not talking about that one tonight. But on this one, like, I don't know, man, like, I choked up a lot on this one. Like, I felt that connection with him and his mom, right? Like, the love, the connection with that. I lost my mom years ago, so seeing that and seeing like that, I want to get my mom back one more day with her. It hit me super strong. So like, it was really difficult to kind of watch, especially when he's in slow-mo and he's tearing and her hands going down his face, and like, just scenes like that
Very
just
beautiful.
really kicked it. So awesome, man. And him having to go back at the end and take it out the cart, right? So that didn't happen, and he sets things back. How hard that must have been to be like, if I remove this, my mom's gonna die. Like, like, basically I'm setting her up to get killed. And seeing that whole journey, and then just how the world's different, right? We get, we knew Michael Shannon was coming back as Zod, and we're going to get this Man of Steel event, but there's no Superman, right? Kal-El hasn't come out, and we got to find Superman, and we need to find Cyborg, and Victor Stone's never become Cyborg, and and all these things start happening. There is no Wonder Woman, and but we know who Batman is. Okay, cool, let's go find Bruce, and then it being the Michael Keaton version. And I love that. And again, the humor, man. Like, I love that. Oh my God, you're Batman. And he's like, what'd you think we're here for? And he's like, I thought this was a cousin's dinner, right? Because he told him they were going to the cousin's dinner. That shit fucking killed me.
That was
I love he's just a little idiot, right? Like, and but seeing him get his powers, right? We didn't get to see that, and seeing them kind of recreate that of him, getting the other Barry his powers, and the lightning strike that night with the chemicals and all that stuff, I thought was super cool. And then seeing them kind of recreate from the Flashpoint animated, like, with putting him in the chair, and Batman running the kite and kind of getting him electrocuted to get his powers back, and seeing that kind of recreated. And obviously the introduction to Supergirl, and how we get the opposite side of that. She landed, she was here to protect Kal-El. They killed the baby, right? The baby wasn't the one, with the midichlorians, basically, to get the Kryptonians back again, but she's the one now. And how we had that change of events, and just the way everything played out. And then you see the worlds colliding, and you see all the different, the nods to the Christopher Reeve Superman, and Nicolas Cage Superman, like, things that you're just like, what? Like, that's a deep cut, right? A lot of people won't know that, but that's super cool. Adam West Batman, different things there. To the end there of him going back and then moving the tomato sauce to the top shelf to get his dad out of jail. Super smart, but still fucked up the timeline again. And then we get George Clooney as the Bruce Wayne at the end, which I thought was super funny, super cool to be like. I love that he's like, who the fuck are you? It's like, what? Man's Bruce. Like, so it's like, I loved it, man. I loved the way it played out. I thought it was so much fun. The action was fucking badass. The heart, the family, the humor. This movie just really worked on for me, and I've always been the big DC guy. I've been the DC fan. I've loved the DCEU as it stood throughout all these films, and really appreciated them for what they tried to do, and the kind of the grander kind of scale. Sometimes it works better than others, but I thought this one really worked, man. I felt it. Like, I felt like I understood those earlier reactions when everybody was like, this is the one, right? This is where it comes in. Thought Ezra killed it, thought Keaton killed it. They fit right back into that role, man. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Affleck was great in his limited time, seeing everybody come together, Michael Shannon coming back, seeing that kind of recreation from Man of Steel. I thought Sasha Kaye was great as Supergirl. Like, curious to see if they choose to go down that route for the Supergirl movie in the DCU. Just a ton of fun, man. I really, really, really dug this movie. So going back to you, Peeps, I think you kind of had an interesting journey on this one throughout it. So kind of like, where'd you start? Where'd you go? And how'd you end up?
Yeah, man. Like I said before, I really kind of came into this whole thing being very cautious. Haven't actually read the Flashpoint comic and watched the Flashpoint animated movie. I know that obviously this was supposed to be Flashpoint, but none of the elements from the trailer were in this. Or no, none of the elements from the comic book really were in the trailer. So I was this is Flashpoint like, kind of like Civil War with Civil War like, and that's just kind of what Frigginz is helping me kind of like understand and cope with, that when they release a movie that's titled Age of Ultron, it's not going to be the Age of Ultron that I know it's going to be. Right. It's going to be.
We're not getting that
different.
Secret Wars.
We're not getting that secret invasion either. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah. So and I get that, and it's just difficult for me. So saying that, listening to you, Don, like I do recall like having a blast, cracking up at multiple points in this movie, from the point when you see a bunch of babies in a building. I'm like, no, they're not. No, they're not. And then you see the building start to collapse, and then the babies are heading out. I'm like, so they're not going to kill a bunch of babies. This is going to be a ridiculous baby scene, isn't it? Yup.
So stupid.
It was so stupid. It really was, but it was a lot of fun. I will say that.
Yeah.
I was cracking up, and even to the point to where, like, he's got to get charged, to move. It makes a lot of sense. Something I guess I kind of wish they would have touched on a little bit later, like maybe a callback to this big moment they had in the beginning of the movie, but whatever. Yeah, man. I am a lot of things I liked about this movie. Definitely had a tear at the very end of the movie where he's talking to his mom, and it's like she knows who he is. Like, she knows who he is. And it's like she knows that he can't. It's this weird, like, Back to the Future thing. Like, we've all seen it. We all understand how time travel works. So maybe she's smart enough to know that he can't actually say anything about who he is or why he's there. But yeah, man, it was a very beautiful moment. You can take it probably many different ways. Maybe she had no idea who he was, and she's just that nice of a person. But in my mind, I want to say that she knew who he was. And yeah, super beautiful moment. And I thought it was going to go a little bit darker, and in order to make sure that it happened, he was going to be the one that
No,
I was worried about that too.
No, that thought never crossed my mind.
Yeah, Fred and I are kind of twisted, so that's how we are.
Jeez. I gotta reset the timeline.
I'm a little disappointed that they're going to do Flashpoint without a reverse Flash. I thought for sure with them having two Flashes, that was going to be a reverse Flash. They did that kind of ish. But I thought it would have been a neat twist on the reverse Flash character if reverse Flash was just a twisted version of Barry. I don't know. Maybe not. But yeah, man, lots of really cool points. I definitely had a lot of like little teeny tiny nitpicks about this movie. I don't know, probably I might save that for Frigginz, but
no, go for it.
I mean, I can't really think of it now because I'm on such a high of all the positives that I like.
Reverse Flash.
I didn't like the Batman stuff as much as Frigginz, so I'll definitely let him take that.
Thanks. Take the Reverse Flash.
No. Yeah. Supergirl. I thought she was great. Unfortunately, because this is the first time that we've seen her, I don't think we had enough time to actually care that much about her, and really get invested in her. Her discovering her powers and her having her nice, clean Superman suit there's nothing, there's not even a bucket for her to poop in, nothing. There's just her emaciated and then the Superman suit. That was nice of the Russians to throw that in there, by the way. But I don't know, man. Like, I wanted more of her. and I wanted to kind of see a little bit more about like that character. But as much as I like her, like huge missed opportunity to have that character be Henry Cavill. I think seeing him as that at this time, I think would have drawn in so many more people. And then even see that, like in the Flashpoint, Superman was super emaciated, so we're not going to see Henry Cavill. We're going to see like Captain America, like one like skinny and what Andrew Brody, and whatever his name is, like skinny Henry Cavill. And I don't know, man. Like I think that could have been kind of cool. The stakes, him versus Zod, would have been kind of interesting. And I don't know. And the fact that I don't really understand what they're trying to say. Like their timeline is they're destined to die in that timeline, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's like the Time Machine movie.
Right.
No matter how many times he fixes it,
No matter what you do.
Yeah. But like, if that's the rule, then why is Barry trying to save his mom? Because if that happens in time, then you can't fix that. I don't know.
I think that's what it took for him to learn that message.
Right. To realize that. Yeah.
He didn't think that was the case until he saw that.
Well, that's why that other version became the Dark Flash, because he was like, we could stop it. No one has to die. Let's keep trying. And he gets stuck just doing it over and over and over. You know, it's the Edge of Tomorrow, just constantly trying it in different angles. But at the end of the day, they're always destined to die no matter what they do. So, you know, our Barry figured that out finally and was like, there's no other way around it. We got to put it back, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. But I don't know. I wanted more. What's his name? Zod. Michael Shannon. I thought he was great. Yeah. I don't know. Like it's like those characters. Like their whole purpose in that movie was just to die. Like that's and to help Barry get back to his. I don't know. That kind of sucks. Like I wanted to see them be able to transition, or at least kind of, you know, give him a high five as he kind of leaves their universe alone. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, so this movie has been through a lot, as we talked about. You know, many years and many leadership changes. You know, so the ending to this movie has changed 3 times. So
Wow.
The original ending to this movie that was made the first go around, he does fix the timeline, or not doesn't fix it, but at the end of it, he does end up saving them. So Michael Keaton stays as Batman, and Sasha Calle is there as Supergirl, right? And because that, you could tell it's where they were going. Remember, they made that Batgirl movie and Michael Keaton was in it, right? So he was gonna be the Batman, right? We lost Affleck, we got Keaton back, the timeline kind of turned. But that's the way it ended up. And that was the original kind of way. And then leadership changed again right around that Black Adam-y time. And then it was like, hey, let's kind of go back to what we originally were doing. And then so at the end of the movie, after he comes, everything always ended on the courthouse at the end. And then it was, you know, at the end of the courthouse, he comes out and Michael Keaton is back. He's there again, Sasha Calle, but now Henry Cavill is back. They shot a scene with Henry Cavill coming in and Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot coming in, and this is now your new Justice League, right? Like this is your new group. The timeline's kind of mixed, so we got a little bit of the old, we got a little bit of the new, and here's how we're going forward, right? But then James Gunn took over and they were like, no more Henry Cavill. So they didn't want to leave him in there. So they took that out. Gal seems to be done. So they took her out of that end frame. And then they decided to kill off Keaton and Kaye in the scene because, you know, what are we going to do? Like that's probably not the direction we're going. We're resetting everything. So let's not bring any of that. And that's how that end scene shifted to kind of the joke of, oh, Batman is now George Clooney, right? Like Batman keeps changing no matter what timeline he does. It's a different Bruce. It's a different Batman, right? So that's kind of how we got to where we got. So this movie's had the ending reshot at least 3 times, if not more, which I find hilarious. So there's I wish I could see the scene. I want to see Henry Cavill come in, man. He was my biggest gripe with this film, is that They kind of wrote him off in the beginning in the Justice League kind of scene. They're like, oh, he's off saving, and you see on the news he's flying around
shooting lasers at
right?
volcanoes.
Yeah. And I wanted him, just like Wonder Woman showed up, like I wanted him to kind of come in, and we could have at least got some kind of Justice League scene in the beginning before Barry fucked up the timeline, right? So we could have at least kind of said goodbye in that section. I wanted one more, right? And then I felt even at the end when you're seeing the worlds collide and this and that, we get Christopher Reeve, all this stuff, like there was really no love for Henry Cavill, right? I only saw him in one shot as he was going through the multiverse, which was the Justice League one where he's got when they fight him, and he's throwing the punch,
looking at
and like there's a freeze frame of him like that, as he's running through, and that was pretty much the only kind of reference I felt for him, so I was kind of bummed that they didn't lean into that a little bit more, because you could tell like they, besides the cyborg part of it all, which we know that they've been beefing, so I didn't expect to see Ray Fisher pop up, but I expected it. They could have slid in Cavill, I felt, in that beginning action sequence to kind of help out and be like, all right, guys, I'll see you later, and then take off. It would have been nice, I think.
I feel like there's just been too much drama with him too. Not that he's done anything wrong, but there's got to be something behind the scenes with him and WB, because they haven't wanted to do the next Man of Steel, and I feel like he's just completely always getting pushed under the rug. And for them to just be like, like putting him off, and they're focusing on all these other things, like Wonder Woman kind of took that spotlight, and even doing multiple Suicide Squads before doing another Man of Steel. So I feel like that just kind of fits with the normal thing that they've been doing. But for this movie, I'm going to pick up
because they were so nostalgic with a lot of this, like it was so. You could tell Andy Muschietti was paying his respect to what came before it, right? You're going to lean in so heavy to the Man of Steel dialogue in this movie, and then not at least have a Cavill cameo in the beginning. Like I said, it could have been as short as the Gal Gadot one. Like, just he should have just helped out and then been like, peace out, and at least we would have had, hey, in this timeline, that's still our Justice League. That's what we had. And then Barry shifted it,
But the hardest problem with Superman is he solves all your problems, and so Barry needs to be the one to solve the problem.
That's why he comes in at the end. He could have helped catch some babies. Come on, dude.
That he could have, and that's where like this movie almost lost me right off the bat. The beginning, I think like the first half of this movie, I was just eye rolling, and I was like, God, I'm gonna hate this movie. The baby scene. This everyone keeps asking me if this movie is good or not, and I'm like, it's not good, but it is fun, and that's the thing that I struggle with. So when you talked about like the critic score being so low and the audience score being so high, that's actually like a perfect example of my own experiences. I feel like if you look at it critically, you're gonna chop this thing to pieces. I mean, it's not structurally sound. There's a million plot holes. The CGI is mostly crap. There's like all this like weird stuff, but some way they managed to make this thing fun as hell, and that's
the roommate scene.
Yeah, all that stuff is just it's weird how they were able to mix that together in such a way to make it work. But I gotta say, like the baby scene was stupid, like, but at the same time, like as it was happening, my first reaction was like, this is totally dumb. But then I thought, this is something that would happen in a comic book. Like I could see
the Quicksilver scene.
Yeah, it's kind of a Quicksilver idea. I could see this being in a comic. So I give it a little bit of credit for the fact that they are, at least in some regards, sticking to a comic-y kind of vibe. Now, I personally struggle with Ezra Miller. I know that you mentioned you really liked their portrayal. I feel like I'm too linked to the comic and the old versions that their portrayal doesn't really match with that vibe, and so I struggle with that. Plus, we also have Grant Gustin, and I absolutely love him as the Flash. So
missed opportunity.
Absolutely, I'm just like, you could have just had him the whole time, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. The bottom line is Ezra did do good job in this movie, and especially playing two versions of themselves. It's really challenging to be able to pull that off in such a way where they actually seem like different people, and I had no trouble differentiating the two. right? Like they did a really good job of creating this.
One had longer hair.
Well, other than the visual cues, yeah, but like with the personalities, the way they spoke, the way they presented themselves. I mean, it was really well done. So I do got to give Ezra credit for that. But for me, this movie is all about Batman and all about Supergirl. When Batfleck was in there kicking butt right off the bat, I was digging it. Some of the bad guy thing kind of sucked. It was just another bunch of random Joe Schmoes. I know, Peeps, you mentioned like when we've talked offline that should have been like
a villain.
Yeah, it should have been Kite Man. You know,
something.
hell yeah,
right?
Somebody. And so that was a missed opportunity. You're going to
from the Peacemaker show. I don't know anybody.
Yeah, you're going to wipe out the Batfleck anyway. Why not make it be somebody else? And then, you know, you got Keaton coming in, and I was worried about like how that was going to play out, but he kicks so much ass. And like that fight scene when they're in that Russia area and he swoops down and just destroys those bad guys. I mean, like the whole time I was like, oh shit, damn, you know, like I kept like just being like, wow, like I couldn't believe like the wickedness that he had. Like we all talk about like Batfleck like straight up murdering people, but this Keaton was I'm pretty sure some of those dudes were dead too. So I
think just brain injuries. I don't think they're dead.
Yeah.
Like, definitely
like
long term.
He only dropped one guy like 50 feet.
Yeah. And then you bring in Supergirl, and I know you guys are all, you know, whooped on Henry. Like I will take Sasha Kaye as Supergirl. Give me that. Like I want that movie. Like when she shows up and she's just like hammering those bad guys. Now there's definitely some dead bad guys there.
Oh yeah, she killed them all, which makes sense. Like, you know, it looked like her spine had like holes in it, like they were
like they were like digging something in there. But she just whooped ass, and I absolutely loved every second of it. So again, I said it in the beginning, and you know, here I am. Like a lot of the joy of the movie was everything to do with non-Flash for me, and I thought the Batman scenes were so great, and that the Supergirl scene was so great that really helped me to find a different appreciation for the movie after that like halfway point. And I will give it credit for the comedy aspects. I was not expecting to laugh so much, and I really did have a fun time. So although I do think that it's like critically not a great movie, I did have a blast with it and do recommend it. So that was a really fun aspect. CGI, you know, was not done well. I know they're coming out trying to say like, oh, it's done that way on purpose. I feel like that's a cop out, like, but you know, who knows?
I don't think so. I got to combat that, like at all. I don't think it was that big of a deal. Like I think everybody's blowing it way more out of proportion. Most of the CG was fantastic in this movie. There were definitely moments, and I do get what he's saying. Like if you read the article where he's breaking it down, he's talking about how it's seen from that Speed Force kind of perspective. So things are blurry. He's looking at things so fast that things are offset because you're seeing it through Barry's eyes. And everything was done on purpose. Remember, they've made this movie over the course of the last 3 fucking years. There's plenty of time to flesh this movie out and to work on the CG and to do this stuff. I have no doubt that was specifically the way they wanted it to look. It was risky, maybe, right? Because now you have this conversation of people being like bad CG when it really wasn't, and it was just an intentional thing to do. But when you take it out and you look at it from different perspectives in the movie, it works, man, on so many levels. Like so much of the CG was super top notch. So it just, you know, you got to take a look at that.
The only thing that it did because the baby's CG was crap. So like, you know, it's not just that
they should have just used real babies.
Just launch them out the building. But no, like the thing
fuck
is
them kids again.
They did right. They did this specifically so that way they can bring in those cameos, right? Seeing Christopher Reeve, seeing Adam West, seeing Nick Cage, which by the way, that was just so well done. And if you know that story, it just makes it so much better. If you don't know why Nick Cage was fighting a big spider as Superman, you need to go and listen to Kevin Smith talk about this. Kevin Smith has a whole show he did where he like explains how they wrote the script, and that was going to be the scene of Tim Burton's Superman You gotta listen to it. It'll make that scene so much better. But yeah,
there's a great documentary too called "The Death of Superman Lives." What happened?
Yes, great,
and it breaks it all down what happened with this movie. So definitely check that out.
And it also like it was a shining moment in the movie for me because I knew those aspects to it, so it made it really fun. But overall, I mean, I feel like I could keep talking, especially about Batman and also Batman, but there's at least 3 of them, and I just think this is very reminiscent of a Fast Furious movie aspect where if you go in, you're just going to turn your brain off, have a good time, let it ride, yeah, that's where I'll leave it.
Any other points y'all want to touch on with Flash?
Actually, I'll take it back. I want one more thing to say, and that is, and I know you're going to disagree with me, Don, and you're going to tell me I'm crazy, but the after credit scene is not worth staying. It's a joke. That's all it is a stupid joke, and
funny.
I could have just went home early, 5 minutes early.
Okay, but here's my counter to that, because I agree with you. The after credit scene sucked. It sucked. I'm not denying that.
Okay.
It was horrible, and honestly, my theater groaned when the scene was over. Everybody was like, "Fuck!" Like, we just waited through 10 minutes of credits for that.
Yeah,
it was a bummer, right? But my point on your thing was more of like, to just say it's a joke and skip it isn't quite the way I would want to present that to people, because if there are people that didn't, that's a big cameo to have Jason Momoa pop in as Aquaman, showing again that in that universe, even with an alternate timeline, he is still Arthur Curry, he is still Aquaman. He's, could be a different version of Aquaman, but he's still that Aquaman in that timeline to set up Aquaman 2. And that's a big cameo in a scene to just blankly say the end credits is a joke, don't stay, because you're making people miss out on the fact that there is a cameo from Aquaman in this movie, even though the scene sucks. But it's still there, and like, I would at least preface that there is a cameo in there to go along with that joke. So stay or don't stay, I'm kind of letting you know I didn't care for it, kind of a thing. But like, I just didn't like that you wrote it off, because there's a lot of people that probably would have found out that Momoa was in it and probably would have been mad, because he's in no other part of the movie. So like, if you would have missed out on that, regardless of the joke, I think supposedly that scene's supposed to set up a bigger purpose for his movie. So like, they're saying it's not, people are not understanding what they were going for, I guess.
I definitely do, because I think if we get to Aquaman 2 and they mention that Barry was like hanging out with him, cool, that explains it. I didn't have to wait those 5 minutes.
Wow. Yeah, just final thoughts on, definitely disappointed that this wasn't a bigger baton pass to the future of DC. Like, I thought this would have been like, wow, like everything's fixed, but it's normal, but everything's so different. And then would have been able to kind of see some more teases onto to the future of DC and where they're headed. And I was hoping for that. And yes, at the end of this, they are in a new canon DC, or are they? Because if you're saying this is the new canon DC, then we have a new Batman, right? And that's not the case. I doubt that is who we're going to have.
Well, I think this is the timeline that Ezra's in, to separate it from what we're going to get in the James Gunn DCU. And right, so that he didn't fix it, so we're not back to where we started. He's created another branch, and now that version of those people are in that branch. Yeah, and kind of it's going to be over there.
It just kind of sucks for everybody in the old one, because now we don't have a Flash. So
yeah.
Well, that's where I think I agree with you, Peeps, that like, this movie should have come out after Aquaman 2, which I know was the original way that they presented it. Yeah. And then it kind of flipped with the delays, because if you would have left it with this one, it would have given Gunn and them a chance to really launch off, like you said, baton pass, right? He could have set the thing, and then you see, oh shit, I still didn't fix it, the timeline's fucked up. and then him try to, you know, maybe go back again, but then when he comes out, it's the new actor that's going to be Flash, right? And it's like, what the hell happened, you know? Like, and then now we're in the DCU. There's a different Superman flying around. There's a different Batman, and it's just totally different. And it just ends with, this is the launch of the new universe, right? Like they could have baton passed it really, really nice if this would have came last. But I think having Aquaman come out fucks it up, because it's like, are we getting a different kind of Aquaman in this next movie? Because this is not the Arthur Curry from the last Aquaman movie.
Yeah.
This is a different version, so to speak, from this timeline. It can
and
get
the fact that he's
confusing.
fighting Black Manta, maybe this is the first time he's fighting Black Manta. I don't know.
Well, we'll see.
And the whole Flash thing, I'm sure you mentioned this too, but remember DC's like slate that they released, and Flash was part of it, and it was supposed to be 2018 when that was supposed to come out.
Yep.
Man,
it's been a journey, man. It's been a journey. It only took to 2023. Like I said, dude, season 1 of the Flash TV show. That show went 9 seasons, and we still didn't get that movie. That's nuts. All right, guys, let's do scores real quick. So I'm gonna go 5 out of 5. This has been a great spoiler review for me, because we went 5 for Spider-Man, 5 for Transformers, and 5 for Flash. So this was a good mix of 3 movies to discuss tonight. So like I said, I absolutely loved it. Big fan of this one. Gave me everything I hoped to get out of it, and a little bit more. So like I had a blast with it. A lot of fun. So 5 out of 5 for me. Frigginz?
So I was trying to decide exactly where this was going to fall. This one, I have a hard time coming up with the score, because I think, like, more seriously, this should be a lower ranking score for me, for like 2.5 to 3 range. But I can't help but realize how much fun I had, and I was like smiling the whole time I watched the movie. So I have to give it credit for that.
I have to give a shout out for the phasing, because that shit was.
Oh, that was funny.
When he phased through the floor.
That was
the neighbor's house,
arguing with the lady downstairs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's moments like that
over him
were really funny and brought joy. So I had a good time at the theater. So I'm going to give it some credit. I'll bring it up to a 4. It's probably not like critically that way, but like for the enjoyment, I'll give it a 4. So for me tonight was interesting. It was a little step down. It was a 5, 4.5, and 4.
It's disappointing, because I have to go after Frigginz every time. So it's like, you copied Frigginz. So I am again copying Frigginz, and I'm giving this movie a 4. I do want to give it that you know, Don loves halves, but I do want to give it that 4.5. You know, for all the fun moments that I had in this movie, and you know, it might potentially go up for sure, but yeah, man, even things like his lightning inconsistency. Sometimes his lightning is blue, sometimes it was like yellow
blue when he
orange.
wasn't in the suit. It was blue when he was in the suit.
Is that the difference?
It made it orange. Yeah, his suit made it yellow, because it was the way he was holding down the energy in it. Because even the other one, he had the Batman suit, and that was blue when he was running, and then when he was in his ring suit that he had, it was always yellow. But when he wasn't in the suit, it was blue.
I don't think so, because there was a moment
when he ripped the gloves off, though. He ripped the gloves off.
Yeah. It was always yellow when he had the suit on. But the second he didn't have the suit on, he ran blue.
I think when he ripped the gloves off,
which I really, really enjoyed, because watching the trailer, I was like, how are they going to explain his lightning changing colors? Because it was blue in the Zack Snyder films,
right?
And I'm like, why is it yellow all of a sudden, right? Which the yellow looked cool as shit. Yeah, but then I noticed it was the suit, because as soon as, like I said, like and then when the other Barry got his powers and started running, he was blue, and then even when he had the Batman suit, it was blue. And then when Ezra ran the one time without his suit on, it was blue. But then once he had the suit on, it turned yellow. So I thought that was pretty cool. It was like the way it harnessed the energy.
Yeah. Because he has to read.
And Flash gives it 5 out of 5.
Yeah. Nice. This is a little 5. Cool.
All right. So as we do real quick, as we do with all these comic book movies, the Marvels, the DCs, we like to do our updated countdowns. So real quickly, we want to run through kind of where does the Flash fall on our DCEU list, which once again falls between Man of Steel and the Flash. So all the movies that fall into the actual DCEU. So Frigginz, you want to run it through?
Sure. I got 14 films. That's what you got?
Yep.
Just want to make sure I
Correct.
didn't miss anything. All right. So Wonder Woman, 1984 at the bottom.
Mhm.
Regular Justice League, number 13. That's the what's the guy's name? Joss Whedon version.
Joss Whedon.
12 Aquaman, 11 Suicide Squad with Will Smith, 10 is Black Adam, 8 is Shazam, Fury of the Gods. I messed it up. That was 9. Number 8 is Birds of Prey and the Harley long name. And I'm putting the Flash at 7 right now. I will say that Harley and Flash could easily swap. That's a tough one for me because I really do enjoy the Harley one. But I with all the awesome Batman stuff, I'm putting that at 7. Then I have moved up. Man of Steel used to be like towards the bottom for me. That one, after some rewatches, I brought that up to 6. Batman v Superman's 5. Shazam, the first one, 4. Snyder Cut Justice League, number 3. The Suicide Squad, number 2. And Wonder Woman, the first one, is not my number 1.
Where's your Shazam 2?
Shazam 2 is number 9, right after Birds of Prey.
Okay.
Peeps, what you got?
I got Wonder Woman 84 for number 14. Batman v Superman for 13. The original Suicide Squad for 12. 11, I have the original Justice League. 10, Birds of Prey. And 9 is where I fit the new Flash. After that, Shazam, the first Shazam movie. At number 8. Number 7, I got the Aquamans. Number 6, I got the Wonder Womans. Number 5, I got Black Adam. Number 4, Shazam 2. Number 3, Man of Steel. Number 2 would be the Zack Snyder Justice League. And then number 1 is the Suicide Squad.
Mm-hmm. I always forget you have the Shazam 2 up so high.
I know, I did too.
I
I
really
forgot.
like that movie.
Really, really high.
Yeah.
Loves unicorns.
You don't.
All right. So coming in number 14, we'll make it a trifecta. Wonder Woman 1984.
Okay.
Number 13, Birds of Prey and the fantabulous one, Harley Quinn. Number 12, Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Number 11, the first original Suicide Squad. Number 10, Wonder Woman. Number 9, the original Shazam. Number 8, Aquaman. Number 7, Black Adam. Number 6, The Suicide Squad. Number 5, The Flash. So that's where I come in at number 5. Number 4, the original Justice League theatrical version. Number 3, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Number 2, Man of Steel. And number 1, the Zack Snyder Justice League, baby. So that is our dated DCEU countdown. One movie to actually two movies
Blue
to
Beetle.
go, kind of. I don't know, man. Blue Beetle's kind of hanging on that. Like James Gunn made a statement the other day, which was kind of weird because he said, Blue Beetle is the first official character of my DCU.
Yeah.
But Superman Legacy is my first official movie of the DCU. So it kind of sounds like he likes the character and he's going to keep the character, but that movie is not canon. It's the sound of it because he did not say the Blue Beetle movie is a part of the DCU.
Character.
He said Blue Beetle is. The character is a part of it. So makes me feel like he doesn't want the movie to be canon, but he's going to keep the actor and the character in the DCU because I think the movie's very standalone-ish. It's not going to show anybody or talk about anything that would really hinder the DCU. So so that one's going to kind of it teeters on if it'll be a DCU or just a DC movie. But we at least have Aquaman 2, The Lost Kingdom, coming out down the pipe here. So that is our Flash spoiler review. So thanks everybody again for trucking along here. A little over 2 hours, but we did it. For our big trifecta of our Am I Still in the Air, Across the Spider-Verse, Transformers Rise of the Beast, and the Flash spoiler reviews. So lots of goodness to get through there as we broke it all down. So let's go around the horn and see where everybody can find y'all. Frigginz, tell them.
Well, I'm pretty much only on Instagram and Twitter right now. That's at Frigginz, Frigginz, Frigginz with a Z. And then occasionally I get lucky enough to be invited back to this show, Am I Still in the Air? And occasionally over at a Peeps show over at the People's Forum, so you can keep track of their shows, or check out reddragonsradio.com, where it's got all the links to all the good shows.
There you go. Follow it right there at Frigginz with a Z. All right, peeps.
Hello. Yes, the People's Forum on the internet. I talk a lot about Marvel DC stuff every Mondays, though I have been slacking lately. Life is busy, so trying to get those episodes out for everybody. But
that's why we're doing 3 movies in one night, y'all.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, and we're going to be so much down the pipeline. So but yeah, mainly talking about this kind of stuff. I try to do my Wii views, just kind of movie reviews here and there, but podcast thing, if and appear on this guy's DX's thing every now and then. Frigginz, I haven't yet to stop by on my friggin' movie review. Maybe
I have to figure out how to edit multiple people in.
I can just go over there. It's not.
Okay, we'll work something out.
I want to tell you you're friggin' wrong on a real review.
Like right there.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Just
you ended one episode. Tell me if I'm friggin' right or friggin' wrong, and then I push the screen over, and I'm like, "Yo, you're friggin' wrong, and this is why."
I love it.
Good.
I love it. All right, maybe we'll have to have an in-person recording session.
Perfect.
So yeah, follow Peeps there at For My Peoples over there on the Twitter, and check out the podcast here on the Red Dragons Radio. And of course, for us here, you can see everything ticking along the bottom. Pretty easy. Follow at Am I on the Air pretty much across all socials: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere. Just follow along. Am I on the Air? New episodes stream every Tuesday, so make sure you check that out for your weekly breakdown of different movies and TV shows and everything in between. And you can follow me directly at DX DONMEGA as well. So thank you again for trucking with us and sticking with us for 2 hours and 20 minutes as we broke down 3 films here. And we hope that we caught up for all y'all that have been waiting for, all 3 of these, or maybe 1 of these, 2 of these. Who knows? I think you'd like to listen to all 3. So I hope you appreciate it. I'm going to try to put some timestamps in here for the audio podcast, so you can jump around maybe if you need to. We'll see what we could do there, how easy that would pans out to be. But thanks for listening, and we'll be back next time. So follow everybody, keep us all on Twitter, and we'll keep you posted with what's next. So take care of yourselves and each other, and until next time, y'all. Peace.
Yo, Joe.
Red Dragons!